and had low self-esteem. She even developed Stockholm Syndrome while living under the care of her uncle. This is why Fong Xian could take advantage of Huami for the rest of her life, and even took Dai Fong to live in Huami's house for a year without doing anything, and only came out of Huami's house after the extremely cold weather passed. This is also the reason why Dai Fong said Huami was ungrateful, because Fong Xian used to have Huami under her control. Everyone around Fong Xian knows that Huami has received great favors from the Fong family, so Huami must work hard for Fong Xian all her life. Even though Huami's efforts have already been overpriced by a lot, usually at this time, as long as Fong Xian and Dai Fong showed a little unhappiness, Huami would start to blame herself and feel guilty, and would give Fong Xian whatever she wanted. But today, Huami was clearly standing up. She looked at Dai Fong, who was screaming and shouting, expressionlessly, "Get away from me. Don't use your standards to judge me in the future. I have turned evil. The current Huami is Nugula.me. Catch her. Catch her. She is hurting people. Catch her." Dai Fong covered his hand with broken fingers and yelled at the garrison nearby with sweat all over his forehead. "Are you kidding me?" Huami broke her fingers right under their noses, and they were just standing there watching. Is there no discipline? Several of the guards turned their heads to look aside, pretending to talk. "It's a bit cold today. A cold wave is coming. Wear more clothes when you go out these days." In fact, they were living in the rescue center, but they just wanted to have a serious chat. The young nurse standing at the door of the emergency area blinked her big eyes, then turned her head away guiltily, pretending not to see it. The nurse at the entrance of the emergency area knew this woman named Dai Fong very well. Dai Fong was in pain and angry. She covered her broken finger and rushed to the emergency area. Neither Huami nor the nurse stopped her. She probably wouldn't be able to find a doctor to help her bend her finger back even if she went in. Outside the emergency area, Huami and the young nurse looked at each other and both smiled. Just at this moment, a group of lifeguards, covered in blood, rushed over carrying a stretcher. This was the seriously injured survivor they dug out from the rubble just now. Huami and the young nurse stood aside. She looked up at the stretcher and saw Fong Xian and Qin Ziren on it. Because there were not enough stretchers, 2 people lay on one stretcher. Neither of them had pants on. Because they were carried on stretchers, many people saw them along the way. Really no pants. It seemed that no one knew whether these 2 people were dead or not. They just lay together with their eyes closed and were carried past Huami. She stretched her neck to see what was going on, but her view was blocked by a tall, dark figure. It was Gong Yi. He had a serious look on his face. Before Huami could react, Gong Yi grabbed her wrist and pulled her to the side. In a secluded place, with his head covered in gray, he asked with a complicated expression, "Chao Feng? He's fine now. He's fine." Huami looked up at Gong Yi and said quickly, "Don't worry too much. I said I would send you a message when the time comes." Gong Yi lowered his eyes. His big hand covered in blood was still holding Huami's slender white wrist. Things were more complicated than he had imagined. This was not a simple earthquake at all. How could there be such an earthquake? It seemed to be endless. During this period, no matter how he protected himself, the young men in the rescue team were injured one after another. It's not that he didn't work hard enough, but that the continuous earthquakes have exceeded the capabilities of ordinary humans. No matter how Gong Yi defends himself, unexpected accidents always happen. "I heard from the people below that you are now helping Chao Feng place orders." He held Huami's wrist, as if forgetting to let go, and just gave her a serious look. "Order more water, food, and rescue equipment. Order all the things you can. No matter how expensive they are, get all the goods you can get. I'm worried that the supply of materials will be disrupted after a while." Fortunately, during this period, he went against the public opinion and allocated all donations from all walks of life to the rescue team, leaving no money for other management levels in Chongqing. It turns out that he was very prescient and now is the time to use the money. Huami nodded, pulled her wrist out of Gong Yi's hand, took out 2 bottles of ethanol and a roll of sterile gauze from her bag, and handed them to Gong Yi. "Disinfect and bandage the wound on your hand. I'll go in and see Chao Feng and the injured member of your team first." Before she turned around and took 2 steps, Gong Yi called her from behind. "Huami." She looked back and saw stretchers being carried past her one by one, and the scenery was desolate. Gong Yi looked at her with a slightly deep gaze, and his lips moved as if he wanted to say something. But in the end, all he said was one sentence. If I'm gone, you take the 10 billion and help me take care of the rescue team and the grassroots garrisons. Pa, who cares about you? Your burden has nothing to do with me. Huami rolled her eyes at Gong Yi. She thought he was going to say something, but it turned out he was just leaving his last words. You rascal. She lives her life well, eating instant noodles and drinking mineral water every day. Isn't it nice to live her own little life in the apocalypse? The supplies she has currently stockpiled are enough for her to use for many years. Why should I care about the rescue team? No matter what, Gong Yi is alive and well. After spitting at the rascal, Huami turned around and rushed into the emergency room, stomping on the ground fiercely. Was she familiar with Gong Yi? Talking to her about these things made her feel heavy in her heart. Passing through the chaotic emergency area, Huami came to the outside of Chao Feng's cubicle and just saw Afyu's wife coming out. That Yirong, who was weaving grasshoppers with some straw, seemed to be hesitant to speak. Seeing Huami looking up at her, Yirong thought for a moment and said, their rescue team sent another person, who was placed in Chao Feng's compartment by the emergency department. Huami didn't understand what Yirong meant and asked. Chao Feng has been waiting for so long, but no doctor or nurse came to see him, and they arranged for another one to come in. What's going on? Yirong stopped knitting and said with her hair covered with blood scabs, they said that the lifeguard is beyond saving. This was because there was no hope of saving him, so there was no plan to waste medical resources on Chao Feng. The lifeguard who sent Chao Feng to the small cubicle was also beyond saving. What this means is that these two lifeguards are left to die together. Huami cursed and rushed into Chao Feng's compartment. She saw that Chao Feng's compartment had been doubled in size. Because there were too many people and the small cubicle couldn't accommodate them, Fu and his wife secretly expanded the cubicle to both sides. No one cares about them anyway. It turned out that the straw mat that Huami used to pad under Afyu's two children was woven into an exquisite, complete straw mat by Afyu's wife. The mat was temporarily used as a bed. At this moment, Fu and the factory manager were helping to clean the wounds of the lifeguard who was covered in wounds, using the water left by Huami. Seeing Huami coming back, Fu heaved a sigh of relief. Miss Hua, you're finally back. They sent this lifeguard here and left him alone. Chao Feng, who was lying on another small bed, tilted his head slightly and shouted, Tang Yu, hold on a little bit, hold on a little bit. He still had the energy to shout. Huami rolled up her sleeves and walked over, asking Fu, whose head was split open, and the lame factory manager to stay aside, leaving a seat for her. Standing beside Tang Yu's bed, Huami checked his injuries, which were similar to Chao Feng's, also caused by an explosion. What Gong Yi said just now, that another lifeguard was injured, was referring to Tang Yu. With Chao Feng already in place, Gong Yi managed to hold on to his emotions this time. It was also because of Chao Feng's experience that Huami was able to deal with Tang Yulai with greater ease. She took out 5 bottles of mineral water, 5 bottles of ethanol, a handful of painkillers X500, and 5 rolls of sterile gauze from her bag, and placed the pile of things on the edge of Chao Feng's bed. Then start cleaning, Tang Yu. Yirong came in. Her injuries were much lighter than Fu's. She just rolled up her sleeves and washed her hands with mineral water. Miss Hua, I'll help you. Cut it here. Huami pointed at the clothes stuck to Tang Yu's body, took out a self-contained respirator and a pair of scissors from her bag and handed them to Yirong. 2 non-professional women stood beside Tang Yu's single bed and began to clean Tang Yu's body, rubbing him with ethanol diluted with mineral water and applying crushed powder of painkillers. After a while, Fu's children came in with lunchboxes. The 2 of them were now full of energy and were specifically responsible for getting lunchboxes for the adults. Yirong glanced at her son and sighed. The only good thing about this emergency room is that there is enough food. Huami, who was standing opposite her, didn't say anything. She gradually became unable to stand and felt nauseous. In order to divert her attention, Huami asked, "What are your family's plans for next? I see that the emergency room is almost full of injured people, and the environment is getting worse day by day." Yirong paused and looked at Huami. Her eyes reddened. "Miss Hua, our family of 4 has nowhere to go. They originally planned to leave Xiangqing and go to another city to temporarily avoid the earthquake. But the news said that earthquakes occurred in many cities, and a cold wave is coming. The weather has been getting noticeably colder. It's chaotic everywhere at this time, so it's better to stay in the rescue center in Chongqing. At least there are 3 meals a day and snacks. Huami sighed and quickly sprinkled painkiller powder on Tang Yu. I think the mat you made is quite exquisite. How about you make a mat for me? I have some straw for matting. I will bring it to you in a few days. She was thinking that if Tang Yu died, at least there would be a mat to wrap him up. So many people died in the previous life that there were not even enough shrouds. Although it has not reached this point now, as natural disasters and man-made disasters continue to occur, the human mortality rate will become higher and higher. Tang Yu is a hero after all. We can't just let him lie dead in the wilderness. Yurong also thought of this. She nodded silently without a smile on her face. The two of them quickly dealt with Tang Yu and finished their meal. Huami took out her cell phone and took a photo of Chao Feng, wanting to send it to Gong Yi to prove that Chao Feng was still alive. Huami, it looks like Chao Feng won't die. She sent the photo to Gong Yi, left a handful of painkillers for Chao Feng, walked out of the emergency area, and returned to her RV. In the RV, Huami got some water and filled the shelves outside with goods. He took another handful of straw and sent it to Yirong in the emergency area, asking her to weave it into a mat. Then Huami instantly returned to her supermarket from the RV, harvested the straw on the 1 square meter of black land outside the supermarket, and washed it clean on the second floor of the supermarket. Then she sat down, turned on the computer, and began to find ways to order food for the rescue team. Similarly, 9 out of 10 phone calls to food suppliers were unresolved. But the last call was successful and it turned out to be a giant in the farmer's market. The giants are selling off their goods. I can't help it either. These dishes can't be put in at all. We can't transport such a large quantity out of Chongqing. We all know that Captain Gong has made tens of billions this time. You buy all these hundreds of tons of vegetables for me. I will find a way to get you the food you want. The other party was shouting at the top of his lungs, and it seemed that he had no other choice. All the roads out of the city were blocked recently, and these vegetables would become stale and spoil if left for too long. Vegetables can't be frozen, so who would buy frozen vegetables? So he has to find someone to take over, otherwise he and the group of merchants in the farmer's market will lose all their money. Huami thought about it, and thought of Chao Feng, Tang Yu, and Gong Yi's entrustment of his son to her. In fact, several hundred tons of vegetables could be eaten up. As long as they were not spoiled, they could be left for the rescue team to eat slowly. But due to her nature of bargaining, Huami pretended to be in trouble. There are so many vegetables here. Even if the rescue center is full of food, it can't finish all of them in a few days. If you eat too much, half of them will go bad. In fact, on the day of her rebirth, she never thought about stockpiling large quantities of vegetables and food because she was a wood-type mutant in her previous life. In other words, give her a seed and she can give birth to a forest. In this life, something unexpected happened to her supernatural power. Apart from anything else, she could no longer create a forest from a seed. But because she has been busy since her rebirth, she is not busy enough to stockpile food and vegetables. There were more than a dozen bags of rice in the Lotus Shengxing supermarket that we acquired at the beginning, but it was not a large quantity. The stockpile quantity of vegetables is 0. Since the giant wanted the rescue team to take over these vegetables, she took the opportunity to stock up some. Of course, Huami would definitely not show any joy. She is not stupid. On the other end of the phone, the giant thought Huami didn't want so many vegetables and tried to persuade her, then I will sell them to your rescue team at half price. I know your boss Gong is a capable man. He can make tens of billions, just rob the rich to help the poor, and save us small vegetable vendors. Huami chuckled and agreed reluctantly. Okay, drag them all to the supplies receiving area of the rescue center. It is impossible to leave so many vegetables outside, so they can only be temporarily stored in Huami's level 6 warehouse. Otherwise, it will definitely break after a few days. After getting Huami's consent, the other party seemed a little hesitant again. Beautiful lady, you are really nice. With so many dishes, can you be the boss of Gong? I can't do it. Who can be his master? Huami sneered. Gong Yi had entrusted his son to her before his death, so of course she could make decisions for Gong Yi. The agricultural trade tycoon was extremely happy and obviously wanted to make trouble. He said ambiguously, "Yes, yes, you decide. You decide. Then, beautiful lady, I will deliver it to you now. Well, bring it over." Huami held the phone between her ear and shoulder and said to the giant, "I'll take care of the food for you. But how about the grain? How much grain do you have?" "There is some food. Let me take a look." The calculation started with a crackling sound. The giant discussed with the people next to him for a few words before giving Huami an accurate number. Okay, don't report it anymore. I'll take all the money you have." Huami got a headache after hearing this. With so much rice, she couldn't tell the good from the bad. As long as it was rice, she could eat it. Of course, most of the purchases were made for the rescue team, and she also bought a little for herself. "I don't stock up too much, just about 10,000 or 20,000 bags. If we buy too much rice, it will easily go bad if left outside, so we will put it all into her level 6 storage when the time comes." While confirming the delivery with the agricultural trade giant in Changchun, Huami saw a series of prompts. Start security scan. Completion of security and defense works defense engineering rating. Complete 360 degrees no blind angle monitoring. Monitoring range of 100 meters. Obtain 3 square meters of blackland. Please select a location for the blackland. Did Hua Jing set up the surveillance camera? As long as the surveillance camera with no blind spots is set up, a security defense can be achieved. Huami laughed and immediately asked the giant on the phone, "Do you have any seeds? I want all kinds of seeds, such as fruit and vegetable seeds." She no longer has the power to create a forest, but she has 3 square meters of brand new blackland. The first thing Huami did after her rebirth was to rush to the farmer's market and buy a batch of seeds after visiting the supermarket. But plans changed, and the little bit of seeds we bought was obviously not enough. If she really wanted to take care of a rescue team, it would be best to organize all of them into production. Then everyone has to plant crops, so they need lots of seeds. The giant also laughed and said, "What a pity. I only have coarse grain seeds, no fruit or vegetable seeds." After that, he started reporting that he had all kinds of seeds: corn, millet, red rice, black rice, purple rice, sorghum, barley, oats, buckwheat, soybeans, mung beans, red beans, black beans, broad beans, peas, sweet potatoes, yams, potatoes. Huami felt like vomiting after hearing this, and hurriedly interrupted the giant's report. "I want them all. You can send them all, as well as food. Look at Changchun, it's already like this now. If you have a way, please transport some more to Changchun. Our rescue team will take whatever they can." The giant laughed, as if afraid that Huami would go back on her word, and said, "Okay, it's a deal. You are Boss Gong's man, and I don't believe in breaking your word. Wait for me for a few days, and I will find a way to transfer food from other places." They grew up in an era of material surplus, and human beings are not extinct. Earthquakes may keep happening, but as long as they don't wipe out the human race, there will always be people working and factories operating. It's just that the logistics channels are not smooth, so large quantities of materials cannot be dispatched, causing local shortages of materials. The materials are available, and as long as there are channels, sales channels, and smooth logistics, large quantities of goods can still be found. Aren't the giants holding large quantities of vegetables that they can't sell at all? Just as Huami said, the world is already in such a state that everyone is thinking about stockpiling goods. Even the rescue team is no exception. The food business is definitely going to be good. In the Lotus Xingxing supermarket, Huami hung up the phone with the agricultural trade giant and called the garrison guarding the supplies at the rescue center, saying that a large quantity of vegetables, grains, and seeds would arrive soon, and asked them to move the oil drums. First, receive these hundreds of tons of vegetables, tens of thousands of bags of rice, and thousands of bags of seeds. The garrison who answered the phone looked very surprised and asked, "Sister Hua, it's starting to rain now. Where are the vegetables, grains, and seeds? Are they outside?" No one knows why Huami bought so many supplies. At present, Changchun and neighboring cities have not yet experienced a shortage of supplies, although supplies seemed a little tight in the first few days after the earthquake, and mineral water was also in short supply at one point. But soon, donations from all walks of life flew to Changchun and neighboring cities like snowflakes. Several other cities that were hit by earthquakes in the news also received large donations of supplies. So there is no shortage of food. Xiangqing was just short of drinkable water, but even after the only water plant was destroyed by the earthquake, the price of water did not rise. The price of mineral water in the rescue center has remained stable between 5 and 8 yuan. The price of mineral water in the neighboring city has been stabilized at 10 yuan per bottle. There was mineral water that was sold at 30 yuan a bottle. People sold it for 30 yuan, and they would just sell a few bottles at most. Huami sells a bottle for 5 yuan, and she sells 1 million bottles. How to fight someone who wants to raise the price of mineral water? Huami said, "Don't worry about the drizzle. Just do what I say. I'll come and solve it tomorrow." After hanging up the phone with the garrison, Huami looked outside the supermarket and saw that it was drizzling. She didn't take it seriously at all. According to the apocalypse process in her previous life, the first thing to appear was extremely cold weather. Now there is only a small accident. The earthquake that was supposed to occur later has been moved to the beginning. What will come right after that is definitely extremely cold weather. Didn't the news say that a cold wave would sweep in from the northern hemisphere? But it would take a month or two for it to actually reach Xiangqing, enough for her to prepare for the rescue party. After hanging up the phone with the garrison, Huami called Chi again. "I need to order unlimited rescue equipment. Do you have any source?" On the phone, Ikua's background noise was chaotic, and he said loudly, "There is no source of rescue equipment, but I can find it for you. I have a friend of a friend who runs a sweater factory. Sister Hua, do you want to join me in doing this?" He also received news that a cold wave was about to sweep down from the Arctic. So many people were rushing to buy winter clothes. Ikegawa just happened to have this resource, but his friend's friend only produced sweaters and nothing else. Huami, who was sitting in the supermarket, took out a bag of spicy duck necks from the level 6 warehouse and ate them. "Then you order me 1 million men's sweaters of various sizes and 10,000 women's sweaters of various styles and size M. M is her size. 10,000 sweaters are enough for her to wear until she grows old." Chi was shocked by Huami's handicraft. He smiled awkwardly. "Sister, you are my biological sister, okay? My friend's friend only has a small factory. Even if you make them weave until their hands are broken, they still can't knit 1 million sweaters. Then you should ask them to do their best. At a time like this, they should get as many goods as they can." Huami seemed very calm as she ate spicy duck neck. Just as she was about to hang up the phone with Chi, the other end started shouting again. "Ikegawa, sister, do you have any mineral water? I need 200,000 bottles. The city next door has everything except drinking water. Business here is so good." Huami hung up the phone with Chi, sat at the counter, and took out a bag of spicy potatoes from the level 6 warehouse to eat. She was worried about where to go to order a large amount of rescue equipment for the rescue team at this time. There was no way. This was Gong Yi's last words. She didn't want to do it, but Chao Feng was unable to walk now, so she helped with these things if she had the energy. Huami couldn't think of any other way, so she just turned on her mobile phone and started surfing the internet. There were some rescue equipment on the internet. Hand-cranked radio, compass, folding shovel, multi-functional life-saving axe, safety rope, stainless steel whistle, SOS toolbox, first aid manual, PVC raincoat, escape mask, thermal blanket, fire blanket, nursing bag, long burning candles, emergency matches, non-slip gloves, compressed biscuits, glow sticks, and figure-8 rings. She bought 52 of them. The reason she bought 52 was because she wanted to buy 1 million, but the shopping website reminded her that the maximum purchase quantity was exceeded. There was no other way. Huami could only find other online stores to place orders, but in peacetime, few people use these things, so there are few stores selling related rescue equipment on the internet. Even in other stores, the maximum purchase quantity is only X100. Huami was busy from day till night and ordered several thousand pieces of each type of rescue equipment. Given the road conditions in Xiangqing, it is not known how much can be delivered. So sad. The drizzle outside the supermarket never stopped. Outside the dark door, Huijing hurriedly trotted into the supermarket in a raincoat. He said anxiously, "Miss Hua, do you have raincoats for sale? Is there any way to get one? An umbrella would be fine too." Huami sat at the counter, looking at Huijing blankly. He was wearing a women's raincoat that looked too small for him. Huijing then explained, It's like this. Didn't our family live in a temporary rescue center? But we weren't well prepared beforehand, and it rained all day, which has seriously affected our travel. He sounded helpless, as his whole family had been planning to go to the next city, but most of the city collapsed. Now the whole family was living in a rescue center, only to find that nothing was prepared. Even the most basic raincoat, the whole family, young and old, only has one. I had to go out and buy some on the spur of the moment. There wasn't a single stall selling rain gear in the entire rescue center. Sometimes people are like this. The more they want something, the harder it is to find it. It's so frustrating. Huami looked at Huijing and couldn't help but smile. Yes, and there are many. When she was browsing street stalls some time ago, she bought all the rain gear on the stall. As she spoke, Huami took out a pack of men's raincoats, a pack of women's raincoats, and 3 packs of children's raincoats from under the counter. She knew that there were many people in Huijing's family, but Huijing's small family only had Huijing and his wife and 3 children. I can give you these raincoats, but you have to help me do some work. Huami stood up and pointed to a piece of messy land outside the supermarket. Help me to tidy up that piece of land. If you can give me 3 square meters, I will take it immediately. The workers who had previously installed the generator set had actually helped Huami clean up the area around the supermarket. But Huami had dug a shallow ditch on the circle of land and put up a barbed wire fence, so there was no room for 3 square meters of black soil to accommodate Huami. She needed to clear a flat area as close to the supermarket as possible to farm. In this way, she doesn't have to worry about her black soil being too far from the supermarket. If she encounters some unpredictable disaster in the future, she will have to travel thousands of miles to the black soil to grow crops. Huijing in the supermarket looked back at the sky outside. It was already dark. He nodded. Okay, I'll get it for you. Huijing is not a vague person either. He has been helping Huami with work recently. Although it is very hard to work on the collapsed ruins, he can get a box of mineral water and 5 packs of instant noodles from Huami every day. In the first 1 or 2 days, this box of mineral water and 5 packs of instant noodles could save the lives of Huijing's family of 5. But later, when the donated supplies from all walks of life arrived, these things were not worth much for the rescue center that was responsible for providing 3 meals and 2 snacks a day for the survivors. Huijing's family didn't use the mineral water and instant noodles, but they stockpiled them all. Occasionally, they counted the boxes of mineral water and the piles of instant noodles, which actually made the Hua family stockpile 2 small mountains. Watching Huijing's back disappearing in the rain, Huami turned on the surveillance computer on the counter, patrolled around the supermarket, and then went back to the 2nd floor to sleep. She slept a bit deeply, and actually she went to bed quite late, but the next morning she was slow to wake up. Sleepiness. She must have been too tired recently, so she developed a sleepiness problem. It's not a big problem. Huami doesn't think it will have any impact. The rain is still falling. The drizzle is not heavy, but the weather is gloomy. The cold wave has not come, but this continuous rainy season has arrived first. Huami forced herself to open her eyes and turned on her cell phone. She saw that Huijing had left her a message saying that he had cleared 10 square meters of land for her overnight. But there was no mention of any increase in compensation. Huami felt that this guy was really capable. She got up lazily again, brushed her teeth, and washed her face slowly, while looking at the message Yirong sent her with a distracted look. Yirong. Picture.jpg. What the Hades? Huami waited for the picture to be transmitted over, and upon closer inspection, it turned out to be a picture of Chao Feng sitting up. Hey, that's great, boy. She finally got rid of the mental influence of sleepiness, smiled, pressed her finger on Chao Feng's photo, forwarded it to Gong Yi, and sent him a message. Huami, we have ordered a lot of food and water, but we can't order that much rescue equipment. If you have any connections, please tell me and I will contact them. There was no reply from the other end, probably because he was busy turning over rocks. After Huami brushed her teeth and washed her face, everything was done. She took out a loaf of bread from the level 6 warehouse and ate it while surfing the internet to continue shopping for rescue equipment. Ding! With a sound, Chichuan sent her a message. Chichuan. Sister Hua, a friend of a friend of a friend, wants to sell a large number of solar panels. Do you want any? Huami leaned her head and looked out the window at the cloudy sky with drizzling rain. She yawned and replied listlessly, Huami, yes, drag them all to Xiangqing. A cold wave is coming, and solar panels may not be used, but it doesn't matter. Solar panels will come in handy then. She is rich, she is willful, and she just wants to shop. Ikawawa sent back a smiley face and didn't reply to the message. Huami lay on the counter and fell asleep again for unknown reasons. Let me tell you a joke today. One day, there was a person named Bao Bao Zi. In order to ask for comments and recommendations from her friends, she tore herself into two halves, one named Xiao Bao and the other named Xiao Zi. Xiao Bao said, "My dears, please leave your votes of recommendation." Xiao Zi said, "My dears, leave your comments." I don't know how long she slept like this, but not long after, someone came to find Huami and said that Qichuan introduced her. His batch of solar panels was in Xiangqing and had been dragged out of the ruins by her. Huami paused, paid the bill readily, and asked the visitor to move all the solar panels into the underground garage next to the supermarket. By the way, the 200,000 bottles of mineral water ordered by Qichuan were moved out of the garage and shipped to the next city for Qichuan. Ikegawa's friend called a group of workers to help move the goods. They seemed to have formed a team, a professional team specializing in reselling. So the goods were moved very quickly. Soon the solar panels were put in place and 200,000 bottles of mineral water were also moved out of the ruins. As soon as Qichuan's friend left, Huami went into the dark underground garage and stored all the solar panels in her own level 6 storage. Get solar panel X 5000 unlock storage level 7, space 7x1. Huami looked happy. No matter whether her warehouse contained her supplies or other people's supplies, as long as Huami stored supplies in it, it could be considered as stockpiling. As long as there is sufficient stock, the warehouse will be upgraded. Now that the warehouse has been upgraded, let's upgrade the factory as well. Huami directly spent 70,000 in sales to upgrade the factory to level 7. Level 7 factory, mineral water bottle, specification 550 milliliters, mineral water bottle, specification 1.5 L, mineral water bottle, specification 10 L, mineral water, specification 350 milliliters, mineral water, specification 550 milliliters, mineral water, specification 1.5 L, waterproof tarpaulin, specification 2x 1.5 m, limited production. Self-priming filter type antiparticle respirator, specification, children, X 60,000, self-priming filter type antiparticle respirator, specification, adult, X 50,000, ethanol X 40,000, painkiller X 30,000, sterile gauze X 20,000, hemostatic gel X 10,000. Looking at this level 7 factory, there is a dense row of things that can be produced. There were some things Huami couldn't understand, namely, the limited production of respirators, ethanol, painkillers, sterile gauze, and hemostatic gel. She understood that these were necessary for medical treatment. What the Hades is this fixed and infinitely producible tarpaulin? Huami thought about it for a while and suddenly realized that it would be useful. If she produced it, she could cover the supplies on the garrison airfield. In this way, she entered the open space guarded by the garrison and secretly placed the diesel barrels wrapped in waterproof oil sheets into the level 7 storage where no one else could see them. Huami immediately ordered mineral water of various specifications X 100,000, waterproof tarpaulin, specification 2x 1.5 m, X 10,000, self-priming filter type antiparticle respirator, specification, children, X 60,000, self-priming filter type antiparticle respirator, specification, adult, X 50,000, ethanol X 40,000, painkillers X 30,000, sterile gauze X 20,000, and hemostatic gel X 10,000. After clicking these, there is no doubt that the energy bar of the level 7 factory will reach the bottom. But it doesn't matter. Huami has diesel, so she can let the generator run slowly to charge the Apocalypse supermarket. Holding an umbrella, she went to take a look at the 10 square meters of flat ground that Huijing had rested on. Huami placed the 3 square meters of black soil on this flat land. So, what should he plant? Now that we have rice and vegetables, Huami decided to grow fruits. She bought the fruit seeds on the first day of her rebirth, and she bought a lot of each. Huami looked at the moon and took out a few weak saplings of young orange trees. She didn't know if she could keep the tree alive. She didn't care anymore and just randomly stuck the orange sapling in her hand into a square area of black soil. Then she walked to the second piece of black land and decided to plant apples. She also bought a lot of apple seedlings. On the third piece of black soil, Hwami decided to plant pomelo. These three are seasonal fruits, so they won't fail to grow if planted in the wrong season. Hwami was thinking wildly. She actually lacked knowledge in planting. Because she could promote the growth of plants in her previous life, she could ignore all factors affecting plant growth and just use her supernatural powers to make plants grow. In this life, she planted randomly without much expectation. Anyway, this first batch of seeds was just an experiment. The agricultural trade giant also sent 1,000 bags of various grain seeds to the garrison air base. Hwami had sufficient seed reserves. She should think about planting first. After finishing all this, Hwami held up an umbrella and teleported back to the basement of the RV in the rescue center, ready to go see Chao Feng and Tang Yu. The ground was paved with cement, and Hwami had put on a raincoat in advance, so when she crawled out from under the wet RV, she didn't look so embarrassed. But when she climbed out, she saw that the garrisons standing near her RV were soaked through, but still standing there motionless, like flags flying in the rain. There were obviously fewer people setting up stalls around them. After all, on rainy days, many people do not have professional awnings or rain shelters, so they would catch a cold in this weather. So many people ran back to the tents at the rescue center, and some people, whose own houses were still intact, returned to their own houses trembling with fear for the time being. Hwami held up an umbrella, put on a raincoat, and walked up to a garrison. Sister Hua. The garrison was a little surprised. In fact, he didn't even see when Hwami got under the car. It was his fault. His reconnaissance ability had regressed, and he must not let anyone else know. He secretly decided that he must quietly improve his reconnaissance capabilities. Several other garrisons around him shared the same idea. They all felt that their reconnaissance capabilities had regressed, but they could not say it out loud. They also secretly decided that they must catch up. Didn't your garrison headquarters provide you with raincoats? Hwami was holding an umbrella and frowned as she looked at the hat brim of the garrison in front of her, which was dripping with water. Although it was just a drizzle, it couldn't stop the rain from falling. The young garrison in front of him had a straight face. The rain came suddenly, and the garrison headquarters was still urgently dispatching disaster relief supplies, so it wasn't busy with us. Well, Hwami sighed, what a sin. She took out a pack of men's raincoats from her shoulder bag. Here, thank you for helping me look after the stall. I'll give them to you. The young garrison quickly refused. No, Sister Hua, you have helped us a lot, and have been helping to take care of Chao Feng and Tang Yu. It is only natural for us to help you look after the stall. The rescue team is a branch of the garrison. Chao Feng and Tang Yu also served as garrisons for a few years and followed Gong Yi to the rescue team to gain experience. When he comes back, Gong Yi will at least be able to go to the garrison headquarters in Shangqing, and Chao Feng and Tang Yu will definitely be promoted accordingly. So Chao Feng and Tang Yu are the garrison's own people. Hwami has been helping to take care of Chao Feng and Tang Yu. Not only has she received gratitude from the rescue team, but even the garrisons were very grateful to her. The brim of his hat was dripping with water, and he kept rejecting Hwami's kindness. Hwami didn't say anything in the rain. She just took out her cell phone, called Gong Yi, and explained the situation simply and clearly. Gong Yi was silent for a moment. Press the speaker on your phone. Hwami did as Gong Yi said. Then he heard Gong Yi scolding on the other end of the phone. Listen to her. Wear what she tells you to wear, and take off what she tells you to take off. Why are you being so stubborn at this time? Do you have medicine for your cold? Don't bother with discipline. Just give me some peace of mind. Yes. The young grassroots garrison tensed up all over, as if he was a primary school student being scolded by his parents and was afraid of being beaten. He quickly took the package of raincoats from Hwami, opened it, and put it on himself. Hwami saw that he had put on his raincoat and was going to another garrison with an umbrella. She also took out a pack of brand new men's raincoats from her large shoulder bag. She walked slowly towards the emergency area in the rain and handed out raincoats to patrol officers when she saw them. No one knew how many raincoats were distributed, and no one asked her how many raincoats could fit in her bag. When Hwami arrived at the door of the emergency area, she also gave the young nurse an umbrella. The The young nurse looked at Huami with gratitude. Good sisters, everything is self-explanatory. Huami entered the emergency area and took out her phone to send a message to Gong Yi. Huami, I will send you a total of 2,500 raincoats and an umbrella for a nurse. The price of a raincoat is 100 yuan, and the price of an umbrella is 80 yuan. I paid for it myself. Gong Yi, yes. He replied to Huami with a concise one-word reply. I have no objection to Huami's sky-high price for rain gear. Huami quickly settled the bill, went into the emergency area, and went straight to Qiaofeng's cubicle. Along the way, she felt that there were more and more seriously injured survivors, and many of them could not even get a bed and had to lie on the ground. It was raining outside. Although the emergency area was inside a gymnasium, the ground quickly became wet due to the weather. Huami suddenly remembered the mat that Yirong had woven. It would be good for these people lying on the ground to have a mat. She then slapped her head and cursed herself for having such a bad memory. She finally went back to the supermarket in the ruins. How come she forgot to harvest the straw? So is she going back to harvest the straw now? Huami seemed to have lost hope in life. She opened the control panel and glanced at the corner of the control panel of the End-Time supermarket. There was a row of small icons. Cash register system level 7, warehouse level 7, factory, black soil, supermarket, lottery pool, and so on for a long row of secondary page shortcut keys. Huami clicked on black land out of boredom, and a piece of black land appeared on the screen. The magical black land was covered with lush and green straw. The other two pieces of black land were marked with the words Water Source X1, Water Source X1. There were also 3 pieces of black land with patterns of orange, apple, and grapefruit on them, but they were all black and Huami couldn't touch them at all. For some reason, she felt itchy and touched the green straw. Get mad X1, hey. Remote harvesting, that's awesome. Huami felt that she had saved herself a lot of trouble. She clicked on the supermarket lottery pool again, and it contained a chance to win a lottery every time she reached a level. In other words, her warehouse has been upgraded to level 7, her factory has been upgraded to level 7, and the black soil has been developed to level 3, totaling 6 square meters, so she has 17 chances to draw the lottery. She glanced at the interface and saw 1 draw and 17 draws. Huami didn't have any expectations for the draw because she had never won any prize since she was a child. So she just clicked draw one time casually. Get the growth rate of mat grass X8. Time limit, 24 hours? What? Huami felt a little dizzy. Originally, her mat grass could be harvested once a day. Huami would harvest it when she remembered to, and forget about it when she didn't remember to. So she had been growing the mat grass for such a long time. And now the number of mat grass in the level 7 warehouse is 8 times 8. However, now, the growth rate of mat grass has been increased by 8 times, which means that it can be harvested several times a day. So what did she need so many straw mats for? The first time she drew the lottery, this End-Time supermarket really didn't give Huami any surprises. She didn't have any expectations for the remaining 16 times, so she just left the chance of drawing the lottery there for the time being. Wait until she bathes, burns incense, and consecrates her hands before going to draw. At this time, in Qiaofeng's cubicle, Ah Fu hurried into the cubicle with a few lunchboxes in his arms. He looked at Yirong and the 2 children in panic. I just heard a piece of news that there was a problem with the transportation of medicines in Shangqing. The medicines that should have been delivered to Shangqing yesterday have not been delivered until this morning. Yirong was bringing her 2 children to help Tang Yu apply diluted ethanol. After hearing this, she panicked for a moment, then calmed down. It's okay. Miss Hua will find a way. She and Captain Gong are friends. Chao Feng, who was sitting on the single bed next to Tang Yu, nodded with difficulty, with new burned scars on his face. Captain and Sister Hua won't let anything happen to us. There was no way. Although Chao Feng could barely sit up now, he couldn't move. This was because he had taken the painkillers given by Huami, which blocked out the burning pain. If he moved now, the wound that had finally scabbed over would break open again. So he nodded slowly and spoke slowly. Tang Yu was unconscious, but judging by the expression on his face, he was sleeping soundly. Then I heard Ah Fu anxiously say, "No, that's not the problem. The new emergency department manager said there aren't enough beds. All patients who are able to move, conscious, and..." As he spoke, He glanced at Tang Yu lying on the stretcher and said cryptically, "People like Tang Yu can't stay in the emergency room." Just the two conditions of being conscious and dying, everyone in their cubicle had both. So what kind of patients are left in the emergency room? Silence. Silence is the current compartment. Chow Feng, whose face was burned beyond recognition, slowly turned his head and looked at Tang Yu, who was lying beside him, wrapped in sterile gauze. In fact, since he and Tang Yu were sent to the emergency area, they have not received any medical resources in this emergency area. Their ethanol, cleaning water, painkillers, and sterile gauze were all provided by Huami. Then let's go. Chow Feng gritted his teeth. His eyes were dry and without tears, as if the explosion had dried up his tear glands. We won't take up limited medical resources. Let's go now. The day he was injured while saving someone, he never thought he would survive. He guessed that he would die and never feared death. He understands everyone's difficulties. In the small compartment, Afyu's two children looked at their father helplessly, and Yirong also looked at Afyu. The only people here who are able to move are their family of 4. The factory director's legs are not in good condition. He can take care of himself, but it's impossible for him to take care of someone else. Although Chow Feng was conscious, he, like Tang Yu, could not stand the slightest shake. The blood scabs on their bodies could easily break apart with just a slight bump. Tang Yu definitely needs to be carried out, as he is still in a coma. So how should the manpower between Chow Feng and Tang Yu be allocated now? The key is, where will they go after they get out? Will there be a fixed place that can be sheltered from the wind and rain to settle these injured people? Afu rubbed his face. I'll call Miss Hua and ask about her arrangements. Since it was a request from the higher-ups, there was no other way. How were they supposed to get out? What were they supposed to do after leaving the emergency area? As soon as he finished speaking, Huami ran into Chow Feng's compartment with a bunch of straw and said to Yirong, who was eating a box lunch, "Yirong, help me weave some mats." She happily sat on the edge of Chow Feng's bed, looked at Chow Feng carefully, and praised, "Not bad, that's good. Chow Feng, you are great." Tang Yu's injuries were less serious than Chow Feng's, so if Chow Feng could recover, as long as Tang Yu's willpower was strong enough, he would definitely be able to survive. Yirong looked at the straw mat that Huami brought in, and then at the roll of mat that had been woven earlier. Tang Yu had no use for it, so it was now spread on the ground and used for the factory director to sleep. Well, the factory manager in the corner sighed, reminding Huami that the atmosphere in the cubicle was heavy. It was then that Huami realized something was wrong. She frowned and looked at Yirong and Afu. "What's wrong? Isn't it good that you all survived? Why are you all so sad?" Yirong explained the whole story, and before Huami could say anything, a noise was heard outside the cubicle. He was a conscious injured person living next door, and was cleared out by people sent by the Shangqing management. He was seriously injured. Although he was conscious, he had difficulty moving. It was raining outside, and if he was cleared out of the emergency area, he wouldn't know where to go. So he lashed out at the management that came to clean him out. Many people in the emergency area also cursed along with him. It was raining outside, and the grassroots administrator who asked them to go out did not explain where they should go after they went out. Some people were unwilling to move, or were a little slow to move, so the grassroots administrators in the emergency area took action and threw their things out of the gymnasium door. All of a sudden, naturally more people are unwilling to go out. But there was nothing they could do if they didn't want to go out. A group of grassroots administrators pushed the injured people out of the emergency area in a ferocious manner. Huami frowned, stood up, and was about to go out to take a look when the curtain of the compartment was lifted and someone from the management level came. She was stunned, looking at Dai Feng, who was wearing a management uniform. Why was this woman still alive? Dai Feng was also stunned for a moment. She looked at Huami and suddenly laughed maliciously and said to the people behind her, "This room is a bit complicated, so let's clean it up slowly." Then, she looked at Huami meaningfully. "Huami, come out and talk." Huami's eyes were a little cold as she walked out of the cubicle. Behind her, Chow Feng called her, "Sister Hua." Everyone in the cubicle looked at Huami's slender back with worry. Even if someone didn't understand the whole story, they would know that this woman had bad intentions just by looking at the way Dai Feng looked at Huami. What should I do? Huami looked so fragile, as if she would fall down if the wind blew. Huami turned around and made a gesture to reassure everyone. She then stood at the door of the cubicle, looking at Dai Fong coldly and unfamiliarly. Last time she pricked up one of Dai Fong's fingers, but this time when she saw Dai Fong again, Dai Fong's hands seemed to be bent back again. How lucky! Dai Fong has become the manager of the emergency area. It seems that she is getting special care. You never thought that you would end up like this. Dai Fong looked at Huami with a sarcastic look on her face. It's really a matter of time. This year you're in my house. Aren't you quite capable? I never thought that one day you'd end up in my hands. Huami smiled at Dai Fong with an ambiguous expression. So how did you go from being a real estate agent to becoming a grassroots manager in Xiangqing? Even heroes like Chao Feng and Tang Yu couldn't get the special treatment, but Dai Fong got it. Huami was really curious. Who has such great power? Why not give special care to Chao Feng and Tang Yu? The smile on her face was so bright that people ignored the hint of sarcasm in it. It was as if she hadn't noticed Dai Fong's viciousness at all, and wasn't worried at all that Dai Fong would retaliate against her. Dai Fong turned upside down, pointed her nose at Huami. Of course your boyfriend helped me find this relationship. Ha! Huami, you are such a vicious woman. It's really funny. I don't know what you do all day long. Your boyfriend is such an excellent man, but you don't even know how to cherish him. You are still having an affair with other men. In fact, Dai Fong should thank Huami. If Huami hadn't broken one of her fingers, she wouldn't have been able to enter the emergency area. It was also in the emergency area that Dai Fong found Fong Xian and Qin Ziren, who were not wearing pants and were in a coma. She had nowhere to go, and all the real estate agency's stores had been collapsed. Dai Fong was at a loss as to how she would live in the future. So she helped take care of Fong Xian and Qin Ziren first. In fact, there was nothing wrong with these two people. They were just knocked unconscious by the sudden incident. Qin Ziren is a capable man. After he woke up, he called his connections and took over the management and command position of the emergency area. In other words, it was Qin Ziren's order to clear out those who were dying and unconscious. The special care that Dai Fong received also came from Qin Ziren. Ex-boyfriend. Huami corrected and looked at Dai Fong with understanding. She didn't have a deep impression of Qin Ziren, but this man should be able to do such a thing. Dai Fong rolled her eyes like Nian Fei did. Huami, if you hadn't done this, you would have had a separate cubicle today. Now, haha, I can only say that you deserve to be in a small cubicle with so many injured people. Didn't you see that in such a small compartment, there were men and women, big and small? This was the price Huami paid for being deserted by everyone. Dai Fong was still resentful of Huami for breaking her fingers. Although her fingers were bent back by medical staff at the request of Qin Ziren, they were not as flexible as before. This finger is useless. Thinking of this, Dai Fong hated Huami, this heartless, vicious, and pretentious woman, even more. Huami raised her eyebrows, crossed her arms, and a dangerous light flashed in her fox eyes. Oh, so you are bringing people with you to clear us out? Did Qin Ziren ask you to do this? The medical staff below know nothing and just follow the orders from management. No wonder they do that. Huami had no objection to the decision to clear out the people in the emergency area and leave the beds for the injured who needed help more. She is still in a state of reasoning. She just felt sorry for Chao Feng and Tang Yu. As long as Dai Fong doesn't continue to commit suicide, Huami will not go crazy. But Dai Fong seemed to have left her room without a brain. She looked happy as if she had gotten her revenge. Of course it was your boyfriend's order. Your boyfriend said that all the burdens must be cleared out. I see that you are doing well, so don't take up the bed here. I will not let someone like you stay here any longer. It's my ex-boyfriend. Huami corrected Dai Fong again and said, Yes, I'm fine, but it's raining outside. You're just clearing out the people who are conscious and about to die. Have you arranged where we're going to go? Huami's rage value +1. Dai Fong, who was standing opposite her, had a look of gloating. I don't care where you go. It's raining outside. So what? We only follow Mr. Qin's orders. If you are told to leave, you can leave. Those who deserve to die will die if they take up beds, and those who don't deserve to die will live anyway. Huami's rage value +2. Her voice turned cold. So this means just clear us out and leave us to fate, right? Doesn't Dai Fong have ears? Can't she hear the curses of so many people? Clear the bed. Okay. But the way of doing things is not like this. As expected, the grassroots management that came in through the back door is still not very professional. Dai Fong said proudly, "That's about it. I know you don't want to leave. You don't want to get out? If you don't want to get out, kneel down and beg me. Beg me to break one of your fingers." Huami pursed her lips, and her anger value quickly climbed up +3, +4, +5. She narrowed her clear fox eyes to cover the cold, sharp light in her eyes. However, Dai Fong was still trying to provoke Huami. "TSK. Are you angry? Oh, come and bite me if you have the guts. I told you to get out of here. Did you hear me?" She humiliated Huami to her heart's content. She remembered every way Huami had humiliated her in the past. Now in her eyes, Huami was just meat on the chopping board for her to chop. Yurong, who came out, couldn't stand it anymore and joined in. "Hey, administrator, please be polite. No one will listen to you unconditionally at this time." Someone nearby couldn't stand it anymore and said, "You guys arrange our place and give us medicine. I promise I won't stay here. Who wants to live here?" Dai Fong didn't bother to pay attention to the little trash around her, and directly reached out and pushed Huami's shoulder. "Your boyfriend won't pay attention to you anymore. If you stay here, he won't pay attention to you either." Qin Ziren had instructed that if anyone was unwilling to leave, they could use violence. Rage value +1000. Today is going to be a big day. Huami dodged Dai Fong's pushing hand and slapped her in the face. "I told you, it was my ex-boyfriend." Looking at Dai Fong's face tilted to the other side, with several broken teeth, Huami said, "I also said that we should settle our residence. Will you die if you make this arrangement?" Dai Fong was stunned by Huami. She covered her swollen face and glared at Huami. "Why did you hit me? I'll hit you if you want. Do I need to pick a day?" Huami slapped Dai Fong's other face again, making it swollen. "I told you to use chicken feathers as a token of authority. You got promoted through the back door, you have no professional ethics, and you treat human life as nothing. I will not punish you lightly." Before she finished her words, Huami, who had already successfully gone berserk, kneeled down on Dai Fong's stomach. "For all those who are unable to move, send someone to carry them, lift them, or support them. Help with the cleanup. Don't be so forceful. Will you die if you talk nicely?" "Ah, someone is being beaten. Someone is being beaten." Dai Fong screamed like a pig being slaughtered. Several grassroots managers standing beside her had already seen Huami beating someone. Several men in suits rushed out, pointing at Huami and yelling, "This is outrageous. You actually dared to hit the administrator. Do you know that we belong to the management level of Xiangqing? We represent the management level. The management can get you to do the execution. When did the management standards become so bad?" Huami took a step back, reached her hand back, and with her back to everyone's gaze, she pulled out her section of iron steel bar from her level 7 storage. With a cold expression, she pointed at the several big men rushing over with a steel bar and spat. "I usually don't go big, but if I do, none of you will be able to bear the consequences." Before she could finish her words, she swung the steel bar and hit the man in the head, avoiding the attack from the man in the suit. He hit his head with 2 sticks and nimbly dodged everyone's attacks. 3 sticks are still used to hit the head. Those who have seen her fight like this, and then think of the time she hit Dai Fong just now, will think, Ba, Huami was already kind to Dai Fong. People who are hit on the head by steel bars will either faint or die with a bleeding head. After a while, a large number of grassroots administrators fell to the ground, and each of them had lost the most basic ability to struggle. Dai Fong, who was standing far away, and a few other surviving administrators were all trembling and did not dare to approach Huami again. The injured people who were about to be cleared out looked at Huami standing there motionlessly. She was holding a steel bar, and her expression was like a possessed fox demon. With a pair of fox eyes, she spoke to Dai Fong word by word. "Come here. I'm going to beat you to death today." Dai Fong ran away crying. Huami, holding the bloody steel bar, started to chase after him. Chao Feng struggled to squeeze through the crowd and rushed out of the cubicle. He looked at Ah Fu, Yurong, the factory director, and Ah Fu's children who were standing in front of him and didn't dare to move. He shouted, "What are you still standing there for? Go help Sister Hua." "Help her for what? If you help her again, Someone will die. The factory director turned around and supported the shaky Chao Feng. He said worriedly, "You should worry about yourself. Your blood clot has broken open again." Huami turned around and supported Chao Feng, who was covered in blood scabs. It was too late to chase and kill Dai Feng. If Chao Feng didn't rescue her, she would probably die from excessive blood loss. "Quick, take him back." Huami was holding a steel bar and shouting for a doctor. The factory director and others rushed over. Everyone helped Chao Feng back. As soon as he turned around, a group of conscious, injured people gathered around him. Someone pointed at the well-dressed administrators and cursed, "I've never seen you drive people away like this. You just throw them out. Are we sandbags? You are healthy, so of course it doesn't matter. But since we entered this emergency area, we have been in a state of lack of medical care and medicine. We won't say anything else. You have to point us to a place and let us move there." Amidst the angry curses of the crowd, the administrator in a neat suit also ran away. He didn't even have time to take care of his companion who was knocked unconscious on the ground. Just when everyone looked at Huami and wanted to express their gratitude to her, she had already dived into Chao Feng's compartment. Chao Feng was covered in blood, sitting on the single bed. It looked like his whole body was cracked and blood was oozing out of it. Huami hurried over, took out a tube of hemostatic gel from her bag, and said to Chao Feng, "Don't move. You're covered in blood again. How am I going to explain this to your boss Gong?" She had clearly promised Gongyi that she would take good care of Chao Feng, but Chao Feng, who had just recovered a little, had his blood clot burst open again because he ran out to support her. It was a miracle that he did not bleed to death. Although Chao Feng was covered in blood and looked quite scary, he didn't feel any pain at all. He took the hemostatic gel handed to him by Huami, looked down, and saw 4 large black regular script characters hemostatic gel on the bare white tube. It looks like a 3-no product. But how could what Sister Hua gave him be a 3-no product? Now, Chao Feng would get angry with anyone who said a bad word about Sister Hua. Without a doubt, he squeezed out the transparent paste from the ointment and rubbed it on his wound that was bleeding. The moment it was wiped, the blood on his wound stopped. Huami stood aside and watched, nodding and saying, "Hey, your body's blood clotting mechanism is pretty good. It stopped the bleeding so quickly." The factory manager nearby also came over and asked with concern, "Chao Fenger, how do you feel now? Are you still in pain? Do you want me to give you some donkey glue blood replenishing granules to take?" Chao Feng shook his head and gave honest feedback on the effect of the medicine. "It doesn't hurt, but it's not like I don't feel anything. I think this hemostatic gel is very useful. It feels cool when applied to the wound." As he spoke, the layer of transparent paste on the wound solidified into a transparent film. Just like skin, it sticks to Chao Feng's wound to prevent the blood from running out. Everyone around found it quite magical, including Huami. They all ran over to look at Chao Feng's membrane as if they had never seen anything like it before. "It's so magical. Just stick this membrane on the wound and it won't matter how you move it. Do you even need to use sterile gauze?" After observing for a while, Yurong said with a worried look on her face, "These grassroots administrators are all temporary recruits. Because they have not been screened, their qualities vary. However, they are still management after all." She was still very worried. After all, they were just some ordinary people without any weapons. How could they fight against the management? Huami started packing up. "Don't be afraid. We are not dealing with people. They are doing things without reason or planning. No matter how many people come, we are not afraid of them." After a pause, Huami said with a cold expression, "At worst, I can kill one if there is one, or kill a pair if there are two. This is the correct way to open the end of the world. Now? Haha. For someone who is used to dealing with things in the apocalypse, the current situation where the order is about to collapse is the most uncomfortable. Because no one takes Huami's harsh words seriously, everyone thinks that she is just fighting. I still can't kill people." Seeing Huami packing up, Yurong and Afu came over to help, and then heard Yurong asked worriedly, "Then do we still have to go out?" "Well, get out." Huami quickly put the unused ethanol, mineral water, sterile gauze, and painkillers into her bag. Seeing this, Afu's 2 children, named Fu and Xiaofu, also began to busily clean up the compartment. At this time, Daifeng ran into the emergency area management office crying with a pig-like face. In the office, The chief medical officer of the emergency area was arguing with Qin Ziren. Qin Ziren still had a circle of white gauze around his head. He sat behind his desk and made himself a pot of tea. These dying people are a burden. Don't be indecisive when doing things. When it's time to clear them up, do it. Procrastination will only delay the treatment of more people. The chief medical officer looked at the new young manager and pounded the table. Your focus right now is not on clearing out the people, but on getting the medical supplies here as quickly as possible. Qin Ziren, you're putting the cart before the horse. The transportation of medical supplies is not my responsibility. If I had this power, the management of this emergency area would not be in such a mess today. Qin Ziren smiled leisurely. He was a promising man. Because of his outstanding abilities, he was specially appointed to manage the emergency area of the rescue center. Since he is in charge of this place, everything should be done according to Qin Ziren's orders. The chief medical officer was shaking with anger. What about those who are conscious? They still have a chance to survive. So why should they be cleared out as well? Qin Ziren picked up the small teacup expressionlessly. Do you have medicine for them? If not, let them go out and find a way to treat themselves. But some people don't want to go out. If you treat it in a one-size-fits-all manner, some people who won't die will be tortured to death. The chief medical officer pounded the table, disagreeing with Qin Ziren's way of doing things. As they were talking, Dai Feng rushed in, crying and complaining to Qin Ziren, saying that Huami not only interfered with their cleaning work, but also beat people. Hearing the name Huami, Qin Ziren hurriedly stood up and walked out of the office. The chief medical officer followed behind him. This is really a mess. There is already a shortage of medical supplies, and now there are fights. This is making the situation worse. Dai Feng couldn't help but stamp her feet when she saw this. She came here to complain. So why did Qin Ziren leave? So what should we do now? Should we still do the cleaning work? Dai Feng. A timid voice came from outside the door. Dai Feng looked up and saw Feng Xian, who looked pale, weak, and innocent. She was holding a lunchbox in her hand. I was delivering lunch to Brother Ziren, and I heard you say that your sister also beat you? Xiao Bao. To get comments and recommendations, today I will show you how to break a rock with my chest. Your sister is simply a violent KB. She has gone insane and beats up anyone she sees. I just saw her beat up several of our administrators until they were bleeding. As if she had found an outlet for her emotions, Dai Feng kept scolding Huami. You didn't ask your brother Ziren to arrange a job for you. You don't know how difficult things are out there. Those people are occupying beds and refusing to leave, just trying to take advantage of our medical resources. Your sister is such a shameless person. Feng Xian nodded. My sister is that kind of person, right? Is Brother Ziren going to look for my sister now? That's bad. He will definitely protect my sister. After all, Brother Ziren and my sister are in a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. Bah, your sister said it herself. Mr. Qin is her ex-boyfriend. Someone like her is not worthy of Mr. Qin. In Dai Feng's mind, Qin Ziren can find her a job and give her a decent life. So Qin Ziren is the best. Fortunately, such an outstanding man broke up with Huami. Feng Xian still shook her head. Sister, what she said about breaking up is all nonsense. In order to keep Brother Ziren hanging, she dares to say anything. Only Brother Ziren is still in her control. After saying that, Feng Xian looked at Dai Feng with a weak face and added, Actually, my sister has a lot of men outside. I have discovered several of them. My sister is not wholeheartedly devoted to Brother Ziren, unlike me who really likes Brother Ziren. After hearing what Feng Xian said, Dai Feng's pig-headed face was filled with hatred. She gritted her teeth and said, Are we just going to watch Mr. Qin being played around by your sister? She looked at Feng Xian again, and remembered that when she found Feng Xian and Qin Ziren, both of them were not wearing pants. At first, Dai Feng couldn't understand it. She felt that Feng Xian and Qin Ziren shouldn't be like this. This shameful thing was probably the only flaw in these two people. But now, after hearing Feng Xian's painful words, Dai Feng said with relief, Xin, to be honest, you are the only one in the world who deserves Mr. Qin. An excellent person like Mr. Qin deserves a wholehearted love. Feng Xian was so moved that she shed tears. She held Qin Ziren's lunchbox tightly with one hand and held her chest with the other hand. as if it hurt so much that she couldn't breathe. I'm afraid that now there is no other way to separate them except to report to the garrison and have them arrest my sister. Only by making my sister disappear will she stop playing with Brother Xiren's feelings. It seems that she really cares about Qin Xiren. Dai Feng, the idiot, seemed to have gained wisdom and immediately walked out. I will go to the garrison for help and put your sister in prison. By the way, clear all those disobedient people out of the emergency area. Dai Feng, please don't. I'm just talking casually, don't arrest my sister. Feng Xian was crying behind Dai Feng, but she was just crying, without any attempt to stop her from taking action. In fact, Dai Feng should have done this a long time ago. After the temporary rescue center was taken over by the garrison, there were garrisons everywhere to maintain order. How many people were there in grassroots management? If they wanted to push things forward, they should have found someone with a gun to carry out the work. For example, people like Huami who like to beat people should be dragged out and shot. Feng Xian smiled behind Dai Feng. The smile was so sinister that it made her pretty face look extremely ugly. Dai Feng, full of anticipation, found the guard standing guard outside the emergency area with a pig-headed face. She asked the garrison in front of her to call the team to come and forcibly throw the unruly injured out of the emergency area. In the drizzle, the garrison in a raincoat looked at Dai Feng in bewilderment. Who do you think was causing trouble and beating people in there? A woman named Huami. Dai Feng pointed at her swollen face and said, "This is the evidence that she beat someone up. Do you see it? Go and arrest her quickly. Don't let her interfere with our work." "Oh, it's Sister Hua." The garrison was still wearing the raincoat that Huami had given him. He looked at the other two garrisons that were approaching and waved his hands. "It's okay. It was Sister Hua who beat them up." The other two garrisons were also wearing raincoats given by Huami. When she heard that it was Huami who beat the man, she walked away without saying a word and went to patrol somewhere else. The young nurse standing at the door of the emergency area was holding an umbrella in her hand, which was also given by Huami. She looked at Dai Feng with sympathy, as if she was a fool. If I remember correctly, this was the second time Dai Feng was beaten by Huami. Dai Feng was furious and stamped her feet in the rain. "How can you be irresponsible? You are the ones who are responsible for maintaining order here, right? Did Xiangqing support you just to let you neglect your duties? Don't you understand the words military orders are as heavy as mountains?" The garrison on the opposite side laughed. "Yes, military orders are as heavy as mountains. Your words mean nothing. Anyone can mobilize us to use force. Then we don't have to maintain order. We will lose order first." When they say military orders are as heavy as mountains, it means that the superior garrison will only obey the orders issued to the subordinate garrison. What kind of superior is Dai Feng? The only superior of the grassroots garrison here is Gong Yi. Although Gong Yi was transferred to the rescue team, his rank remained and his position was still in the garrison. Boss Gong said to listen to Sister Hua, so everyone stationed in the rescue center will listen to Sister Hua. If you want them to garrison and cooperate in the operation, then sure, send a senior general of a higher rank than Boss Gong to garrison. Dai Feng was about to say something, but Gong Yi grabbed her by the collar and threw her aside like a rag. "Don't block the way. It's already this late, and you're still dawdling here. Get out of the way." Gong Yi, who came to deliver the injured, rushed into the emergency area carrying a stretcher before he could even finish his curse. Behind him was a group of lifeguards, with every 2 lifeguards carrying a stretcher. This is another group of survivors who have just been dug out from the rubble. Every day, they send a large number of survivors to the emergency area. If there is one more person blocking the way, they will delay rescuing one more person. Dai Feng, who was thrown into the mud, could not help but scream. She was so angry that she had not yet avenged the slap in the face from Huami, and now she was thrown into the mud by the rescue team. What bad luck. She stood up and was about to rush behind Gong Yi. What kind of man is this? He actually dared to leave her behind. He looked like a rescue team. She wanted to complain to death about this man. Huami couldn't beat her, so how could she beat a lifeguard? However, Dai Feng, covered in mud, just stood up and tried to grab a lifeguard who was carrying a stretcher to argue with him. He was stopped by a nurse holding an umbrella. Human lives are at stake. Are you planning to do the same thing again? As soon as Dai Feng stood up, The young nurse knew what she wanted to do. To be honest, in all the years that young nurses have been working, there has only been one person like Dai Fong who dares to reach out and grab a medical worker, especially since she was holding a little injured person in her arms at the time. So the young nurse had a particularly deep impression of Dai Fong. As soon as Dai Fong moved, the young nurse knew what she wanted to do. Seeing the nurse blocking her, Dai Fong angrily said to the nurse, "If you dare to stop me, I will file a complaint against you. Do you believe that I will make you fired? Come on, do you think I want this job? You can complain and get me fired." The young nurse stands at the door of the emergency area every day. She gets no subsidy, no rest, and even has to hold an umbrella and get wet when it rains. Oh, that's not right. If it weren't for Huami, the little nurse wouldn't even have been allocated an umbrella. Did Dai Fong think this was a good job? If someone was willing to do this, Dai Fong would have been fired last time she complained. It is because this job is hard, tiring, and unpaid that no one can be found to replace her, so she has to stand at the door of the emergency area all the time. The young nurse smiled at Dai Fong wickedly. "You complained about me and got me fired. So I wrote a letter of recommendation saying that you are kind-hearted and recommended you to stand at the entrance of the emergency department." Dai Fong was covered in mud and standing in the muddy ground with drizzling rain. She looked at the young nurse in front of her in astonishment and could not find any words to say to her. Suddenly, a chill penetrated her spine and she felt cold all over. How many days has this rain been falling? It's going to keep on raining, right? At this time, Qin Ziren had already found Huami in the emergency area. She, together with Ah Fu, Yirong, De Fu, and Xiao Fu, had packed up all their things. No one knew how she did it, but after going out for a walk, she came back with a wheelchair. They placed Chao Feng, who was covered in membranes, in a wheelchair and had Da Fu push him. Yirong, the factory director, and Ah Fu helped to carry Tang Yu, making sure that he would not be shaken at all during the transfer. Huami and Xiao Fu took their things and prepared to move. Although it was raining outside, she beat up Dai Fong and other grassroots managers again. But Huami decided not to wait any longer. She had to go out sooner or later. The fight she had had was due to the fact that she was driven mad by Dai Fong, and also because she wanted the grassroots management to properly settle the other injured. Now the fight is over. She has hemostatic gel, sterile gauze, painkillers, and ethanol. Tang Yu is not dead yet. With such a magical tool as hemostatic gel, Tang Yu may not die. So she decided to take the people in the cubicle and leave first. "I'm too lazy to argue with Qin Ziren. Ami." As soon as she walked out of the cubicle with her bags, she heard someone calling her. Huami turned around and saw Qin Ziren, dressed in a neat suit, walking towards her. "Qin Ziren, I haven't seen this man for many years." After the extremely cold weather came in the previous life, Qin Ziren, who had been trying to win back Huami, suddenly lost contact. Huami never thought of looking for him, and he never showed up again after that. Qin Ziren was standing in the messy emergency room in a casual manner. He looked at Huami and said with emotion, "Why are you here? Are you okay? I'll arrange a separate cubicle for you." He also thought that Huami was injured when she came in, and he seemed to be very concerned about Huami and his words, and he did not mention the fact that Huami had beaten Dai Fong. As for women, it is easy to fall in love with them as long as you give them comfort and help when they are vulnerable. Huami raised an eyebrow, looked at Qin Ziren strangely, and asked, "Where are the others?" She was able to get a single room, but what about others? She looked fine, but there were many people with more serious injuries than her. For example, Tang Yu and Chao Feng. Qin Ziren looked around and found that none of the injured here had been cleared out. Not only that, there was an extra layer of grassroots management on the ground, all of whom were lying unconscious on the ground with bloody heads, and no one was in charge. It was because of the fight that Huami fought that the prestige of the entire management level was destroyed. It would be strange if the injured here were willing to leave the emergency area now, especially those who were squeezed in a small cubicle with Huami. All looked at Qin Ziren with unfriendly eyes. There was a fierce look in Qin Ziren's eyes. They were all burdens, and burdens should be abandoned. However, when facing Huami, he changed into a gentle and polite appearance. "I don't care about others, Ami. I only want to be responsible for you. Let's go." Huami turned around and looked at her companions in the cubicle who were waiting for her, too lazy to say another word to Qin Ziren. There was no need to talk too much. She was in a hurry to settle Tang Yu down and then apply hemostatic gel on him. Qin Ziren frowned. He had been ignored by Huami for long enough. Ami, don't go against me. He stepped forward and tried to reach out to grab Huami. He wanted to keep her and explain things clearly. In fact, Huami knew that he had slept with other women outside. So what? He just made a mistake that all men in the world would make. This is the world. Dai Feng and Feng Xian both knew how to please him desperately, and Huami should learn from them. After all, he is an excellent and capable man. He can even get the position of management and command of the emergency area of the temporary rescue center. It is not difficult for him to help Huami solve some work problems. Everyone knows what the correct choice is. But just as Qin Ziren stretched out his hand, Huami turned around and a steel bar that came out of nowhere in her hand hit Qin Ziren's hand directly, which was about to touch hers. A bright red bloodstain appeared on the back of Qin Ziren's hand. Qin Ziren covered his hands, bent over, took 2 steps back, and was supported by 2 grassroots administrators in suits behind him. I only heard Huami angrily say, "If you stop me again, you will die." She had already made a big move, and no garrison came to catch her. So Huami's true nature began to be revealed little by little. In fact, she often turns evil in the apocalypse, and being evil is her normal state. Now her temper of getting violent at the slightest disagreement is her true face. Everyone around looked at Huami and couldn't help but admire her. Qin Ziren roared again, "Ami, why are you going against me?" She beat his grassroots management in public. Beat him in public. She never thought about what others would think of her doing this. Qin Ziren finally became the management commander of the emergency area. Huami was sincere in making it impossible for him to carry out his work. Huami walked forward with her companions in the cubicle. The injured on both sides who were watching the farce automatically parted ways and made way for them. Someone whispered and asked, "What is this for? Chasing his wife to the crematorium?" The relationship between Manager Qin and this person named Huami is not simple. I saw it, and I took photos and videos, and I'll show you. The video was taken out, showing the 2 people lying on stretchers, in which even the ace hair could be clearly seen. TSK, share it with me. Send me a copy too. All the injured who were conscious took out their mobile phones and asked for some negative information about Qin Ziren. They have huge opinions about Qin Ziren and will not miss any opportunity to ridicule him. But Qin Ziren was completely unaware of this. He still looked affectionate and shouted at Huami's back again. "Why, Ami, give me a reason why you treat me like this?" "Because you cheated." The injured around you all cried out in their hearts. Huami, who was carrying a big bag in front and seemed to be going to work far away, turned around and looked at Qin Ziren, who was looking sad, expressionlessly. "Didn't you let us go? Why are you stopping us after we left? With the way you manage and command, you don't use your mind in the right way. It's strange that you can manage the emergency area well." Yes. What the beautiful lady said makes sense. The injured around them nodded desperately. Huami and others walked forward. Qin Ziren behind him was extremely unwilling. He angrily scolded the few remaining administrators around him. "Bring her back, quickly." The administrators were a little hesitant. To be honest, they had seen with their own eyes how Huami fought. If they were asked to step forward to stop the people at this time, they would be a little hesitant. Seeing that the administrators did not move, Qin Ziren, feeling that his authority was challenged, turned around and looked at the chief medical officer of the emergency area. His eyes were full of strength, meaning that he should ask the chief medical officer to send medical staff to stop the man. The chief medical officer stamped his feet anxiously. "I don't have anyone on hand. Everyone is busy." There was no other way. Qin Ziren could only bite the bullet and do it himself. He took 2 steps forward. I saw Huami in front of me leading the people in the cubicle. Just as they reached the exit of the gymnasium, a group of bloody lifeguards rushed over from the opposite side. They put down the stretchers in their hands. The leader, Gong Yi, was soaked with blood and dirt. He shouted at the top of his voice, "Medical staff from the emergency area, come and carry the patient." Then he looked at Huami, who was carrying many bags. Gong Yi frowned at Huami and asked, Where are you going? You're fleeing from famine. Whatever. The world is so big. Is there no place for us to stay? Huami said this as she looked the wet Gongyi up and down and rummaged through her bulging shoulder bag. Oh no, there was no raincoat suitable for Gong Yi in the level 7 warehouse. Gong Yi couldn't wear a lady's raincoat as the size was too small. Not to mention a disposable raincoat. Gong Yi and his team were going to move stones, and the disposable raincoats would break if they were pulled. There were also a lot of umbrellas, which were even more useless for lifeguards. She rummaged around for a while and pulled out a neatly folded piece of waterproof tarpaulin from her large bag. Very good. I'll use this oilcloth to make you some raincoats later. It may look like a cape, but it's a tarpaulin after all. Gong Yi let Huami torment him. When he raised his eyes, he saw Qin Ziren behind Huami. There is no need to guess. Qin Ziren's eyes clearly showed his stubbornness towards Huami. Gong Yi let out a ha and held Huami's wrist. That gesture seemed as if he was doing it on purpose for Qin Ziren to see. What happened? He pulled Huami's body behind him. Seeing Gong Yi grabbing Huami's wrist, Qin Ziren's face became gloomy. He just tightly held his injured hand. The back of his hand was hit by Huami and blood was beginning to drip out. But his eyes were fixed on the garrison rank insignia on Gong Yi's hat. He pursed his lips and said nothing. Dafu pushed Chao Feng forward, and Chao Feng quickly told him about clearing out the emergency area. After hearing this, Gong Yi sneered and cursed at Qin Ziren. I worked so hard to dig people out of the ruins, and you ruined them like this. If you dare to cut me again, I will peel you like a potato. If there are difficulties, shouldn't we overcome all difficulties and go ahead? The man who came out of the garbage dump is indeed garbage. Qin Ziren moved his lips, his eyes became even colder. This is a matter for our management. You are just a garrison and should follow orders. I take orders from your mother. Who the Hades are you? Gong Yi pinched Huami's wrist, protected her behind him, took out his cell phone, and with his blood-stained hands, called the garrison headquarters in Shangqing. How did a little trash like Qin Ziren become the manager of the emergency area? However, after calling for a long time, the garrison headquarters in Shangqing did not answer the phone. Qin Ziren looked a little proud, looked at Gong Yi, and said, I'm the new director of the emergency department. Everything here is under my control, and even you have to cooperate with me. His eyes fell on behind Gong Yi. In fact, Gong Yi was taller and stronger than him. Qin Ziren could not see Huami behind Gong Yi at all, but Qin Ziren's meaning was very clear. He wanted Gong Yi to be more sensible and hand over Huami. Chao Feng in the wheelchair looked at Gong Yi with concern. Compared with the management level, the garrison system is much weaker. If there is an order from above, the garrison must obey the deployment of the management level. But there were no orders from above. Gong Yi sneered and hung up the phone. He put his phone away, looked at Qin Ziren and spat. My superior didn't answer the phone. Now I declare that we have officially entered a wartime state of emergency. I will take over all order maintenance work in the temporary rescue center, including but not limited to your emergency area. This is clearly stipulated. In the garrison system, if in the same environment, the level of command of the management level is far lower than the level of the garrison command. And there were no higher level instructions on garrison. The garrison commander would then have the right to declare a wartime state of emergency and take over command from the management. At this time, violence trumps everything. As soon as Gong Yi finished his words, a group of garrisons rushed out from outside the emergency area and stood against the wall of the emergency area. Just like that, the entire emergency area was surrounded. In extraordinary times, all injured patients should be kept stable, and no one should be disturbed or provoke resistance. This is what grassroots management should do. Although Gong Yi is not in charge of the emergency area, logically speaking, he is not in charge of the temporary rescue center either. But he had lifeguards and garrisons. The survivors in the rescue center were transferred by the garrison under his command, and the injured in the emergency area were dug out from the rubble hand by his lifeguards. His prestige is much greater than Qin Ziren's. In a wartime emergency, if Qin Ziren dared to disobey Gong Yi's words, any grassroots garrison would dare to kill Qin Ziren. Qin Ziren's face changed several colors. Who is this Gong Yi? Then Gong Yi said, First, in an emergency, you need to clear people out and give up the beds. This is understandable, but I think your grassroots administrators are also idle. They have time to play around with the woman. Take care of the luggage and the injured outside. Second, first find a stable place and transfer the people out in batches. The role of you managers is to use a good attitude and solve the emotional problems of the injured in a civilized manner. Put your strength where it will be more useful and don't take over the work of garrisoning. The management level should solve the problem in a civilized manner. If it cannot be solved, then the defense should be put in place. So we can't put the cart before the horse. After saying this, Gong Yi's sharp gaze fell on the few remaining administrators. He seemed not to notice the grassroots administrators who were lying on the ground, their heads broken and bleeding after being hit by Huami. Several grassroots administrators looked at Gong Yi, then at Qin Ziren, without saying anything. Several armed guards came up, took out their guns, and pointed them steadily at the grassroots managers. Do you have the guts to not go out and pick up the luggage and not help the injured back? If you die, you will know whether Gong Yi's words are just talk. The few remaining grassroots managers quickly went out to work. It was easy for them to declare a wartime emergency. The garrisons all listened to Gong Yi, and the administrators were afraid of the guns in the garrison's hands. What did Qin Ziren have to do with it? Qin Ziren watched Gong Yi give the order, holding Huami's wrist and taking her outside the emergency area. His throat felt like it was clogged with a ball of cotton. He wanted to shout at Huami to stop, but he didn't dare. After leaving the emergency area, Gong Yi pointed at Huami and directly instructed the garrison standing outside. Find a few people to cooperate with her to find a place for the injured lifeguard to stay and make it clean. Seeing that more and more lifeguards were injured, Gong Yi decided to separate the lifeguards from ordinary survivors. In this way, Huami, who helps take care of the lifeguard, doesn't have to meet Qin Ziren. Moreover, Gong Yi could see clearly that by stuffing the lifeguards in with ordinary injured patients, they actually did not receive any more special medical resources and care in the emergency area. So far, the people who have been taking care of Chaofeng and Tang Yu are all those found by Huami. The medicines used to treat Chaofeng and Tang Yu were also Huami's medicines. Gong Yi had just openly suppressed Qin Ziren, and he was still worried about leaving his men under Qin Ziren's nose again. It's easy to block an open attack, but hard to guard against a hidden arrow. I'm just afraid that this little trash Qin Ziren will play dirty tricks. As soon as Gong Yi finished speaking, several patrol guards nearby arrived. He looked at their raincoats and compared them with the tarpaulin he wore like a cape. The resolute man covered in mud said nothing. He put his big hand on Huami's head, pressed the center of her eyebrows with the tip of his thumb, and led the lifeguard behind him away quickly. The interaction between the two was seen by everyone. The garrison and lifeguards exchanged mysterious looks. Look, Sister Hua and the boss are he. Of course, those who saw this action also included Daifeng, who was being caught in the rain in the distance. Her eyes revealed deep contempt, and she was even more disgusted with Huami's character. Gong Yi's action towards Huami proves nothing. It only proves that Huami was indeed flirting with other men behind Mr. Qin's back, just as Fang Xian said. Seeing that Gong Yi's men had finally left, Daifeng immediately stepped forward, hiding from Huami and preparing to go to the emergency room to complain to Qin Ziren. As a result, a garrison stood in front of her and said expressionlessly, "Our boss said that all grassroots management should go and pick up the luggage you threw out, comfort the wounded, build safe shelters, and properly transfer the wounded." Why? Before Daifeng could finish her words, a gun was suddenly pressed against her forehead. She was so frightened that her legs were shaking and trembling. I'll go right away. I'll go right away." Huami heard the noise, touched his forehead, turned around, looked at Daifeng who was timid, and said TSK. This Daifeng is really a person of character. She shook her head, and before she could analyze what Gong Yi meant by this action, she suddenly remembered something. The rain keeps falling, and the lifeguards don't even have raincoats. Huami hurried forward, took out the tarpaulin from her big bag, and stuffed it into the lifeguard's hands. Put it on your body, tie it tighter around your neck, grab the two corners, and tie a knot. She took out a piece of waterproof tarpaulin, and then another piece and another piece. When Chaofeng and others who followed Huami came out with big and small bags, Huami had already distributed a piece of tarpaulin to every lifeguard who returned to the rescue center. No one had time to count how many tarpaulins were in Huami's bag. The rescue team, who were in a hurry to save people, didn't have the time to count these. Just when Huami had distributed the tarpaulins, the garrisons drove over a bus. This is for Tang Yu and Chao Feng, as well as all the life-saving wounded who will appear later. Huami thought about it and asked them to park the bus in the square of the rescue center, next to the RV where she sold mineral water. The 10-year-old Xiaofu looked back at the emergency department in disgust and asked innocently, "Why don't we stay as far away from those bad guys as possible?" The bad guys she was referring to were Qin Ziren and Daifeng, the emergency area managers. Huami held an umbrella and said with a smile, "Although they are annoying, they are not the ones who have the final say in the rescue center now. It is Master Gong who manages the order. Besides, it is very convenient here. Only when there are garrisons will we feel safe. If Huami were alone, she would prefer to live a post-apocalyptic life away from the crowd. Because in the late end of the world, humans will experience mutation reactions. Those who mutate successfully become mutants, and those who fail to mutate become zombies. So living among people is not a good thing. However, leaving the rescue center and going to other places to accommodate the wounded of the rescue team is not a very wise choice at this time. Because at this time, all the materials purchased by Shangqing's management were concentrated in the temporary rescue center. If you move out of the rescue center and move on your own, you may not even be able to have 3 meals a day and 2 snacks. The key point is that you can get 3 meals a day and 2 snacks for free. What's more, Huami is not fighting alone in her life. The garrison and lifeguards are very kind to her, and she has no choice but to take care of these people. In other words, if they use up all the free meals at 2 p.m. and the rescue center is short of food and clothing, then we can figure it out later. After a while, the compartment friends walked to the side of the bus. Huami walked into the bus and felt it for a while. She took out a few pieces of oilcloth from her big bag and gave them to the garrison. She said politely, "Please, take down all the seats on this bus and help me use this tarpaulin to cover every corner of the bus to prevent rain and wind from leaking in." Looking at Yirong and the others who carried Tang Yu into the car, Huami said, "Clean Tang Yu and apply some ethanol, painkiller powder, and hemostatic gel." As she spoke, Huami took these things out of her bag. Everyone was busy under her command. Xiaofu watched the garrison remove the seats of the bus. She hurried forward and spread the waterproof tarpaulin given to her by Huami on the ground, and also spread the 2 exquisite mats woven by her mother Yirong on the ground. The 12-year-old Dafu was also helping, spreading the quilt and mattress on the mat, and helping the adults carefully move Chaofeng and Tang Yu to lie on the mattress. Seeing that they were busy, Huami simply went out for a walk, ran to her own RV, avoided everyone's sight, and loaded half of the RV with waterproof tarpaulin. She asked the garrison to find a sewing machine and placed it in the RV. She also called Yirong over and asked her to help make a few raincoats. The specification of each piece of waterproof oilcloth is 2 meters x 1.5 meters, which is about the same size as a slightly spacious single bed. It is also very simple to make a raincoat. Just use a sewing machine to press out 2 sleeves, pinch out the shape of a hat, punch a few holes, and tie it with straw. Yirong smiled and waved her hand. "Fortunately, I can do these handicrafts. Otherwise, Miss Hua, where would you find someone like me?" She and Afu were both from the bottom of society. Before the end of the world, they relied on their skills to support their families. Afu drove a truck, and she made some handicrafts and sold them at a stall. "It's just a sewing machine. How can it be harder than weaving a straw mat?" Huami smiled and said, "Thank you so much. It's a relief to meet someone as skillful as you." Looking at Yirong again, she was indeed very deft with her hands. While talking to Huami, she had already pulled over a piece of waterproof oilcloth and put on a raincoat. Moreover, practice makes perfect with this. Yirong stepped on the raincoats faster and faster, and soon, there was a pile of raincoats on the ground. Huami hurried forward to fold them and placed them on the empty shelf under the awning. When a certain amount had accumulated, she asked the garrison to deliver them to the front line of rescue. This is not donated by her. She sold it to the rescue team, 150 yuan each, 50 yuan of which is the labor cost. Huami calculated. Her waterproof tarpaulin is of good quality. She just saw that the tarpaulin covering the outside of the bus was wet on the outside, but there was no moisture on the inside. There's still a hint of heat. I guess it can also serve as a thermal blanket when worn on the body. So she sold them to the rescue team for 150 each, which was probably worth the price. She reported the price to Gong Yi, but Gong Yi did not reply to her message, which meant that he agreed and had no objection to the price. Soon, Yi Rong had stepped on more than half of the tarpaulin of the RV. Before Yi Rong finished, someone came to the door. "Excuse me, is Miss Hua here?" Huami was placing bottles of mineral water on the shelf outside the RV. She turned around in her raincoat and asked, "What's the matter?" The woman who was found knelt on the wet ground with her knees slammed, crying, "Miss Hua, I saw in the emergency room that you have a special relationship with that big shot. I hope you can give my child some medicine." He was dug out from the rubble, and he was covered in blood. While in the emergency area, Huami dared to openly provoke Qin Ziren, but left unharmed. This is a manifestation of ability. "Miss Hua, you know what the emergency department is like right now. The medical staff are extremely busy. There is no medicine, and the emergency department can't even get a little bit of medical supplies." After a few bangs, her forehead was bleeding. "I'm at my wit's end, Miss Hua. I know you're not an ordinary person. I beg you, can you give me some medicine? Anti-inflammatory, hemostatic, anything." Huami turned sideways to avoid the woman's fierce kowtow and said calmly, "I can give you medicine. The only anti-inflammatory is ethanol, and the hemostatic gel and sterile gauze are used to stop bleeding. But I don't give you these for free." The woman understood immediately. She cried out, "You can ask me to do anything, Miss Hua. You can ask me to do anything." At this time, medical resources are extremely scarce. How could she possibly ask Huami Bai to give them to her? There must be a price to pay, no matter what the cost. Whether it means killing people or setting fires, or using hidden rules to manage people or garrison high-level officials, women are willing to do anything. Suddenly, a QR code appeared in front of me. 1 item for 1,000 yuan, 3 items for 3,000 yuan. No discount. Huami quoted a price expressionlessly. Seeing the woman's surprised face, she motioned for the woman to scan the code. One hand scans the code, the other hand delivers the goods. It's because women think things are too complicated. In fact, garrisoning is not that complicated. She hurriedly took out her mobile phone and scanned 30,000 yuan for Huami, sobbing, I will also buy 10 pieces. Thank you, Miss Hua. Thank you." At this time, who cares about their own money? Even if the same medicine costs 10,000 yuan, women will buy it. Huami saw that 30,000 was credited to the end-world supermarket cashier system. She looked at the woman with a half-smile. "My medicine is too strong. You bought too much. Let's not talk about anything else. Just talk about the hemostatic gel." After 2 grown men, Chao Feng and Tang Yu, applied it, half a tube was still left. At present, both of them seem to have a layer of transparent skin all over their bodies. The bleeding has stopped, but the transparent membrane has not fallen off. Huami got on the RV, took a net bag, and took out 10 bottles of ethanol, 10 rolls of sterile gauze, and 10 tubes of hemostatic gel from the big bag. The woman thanked him profusely and left, wiping away tears as she walked. She was worried that her son would not survive. Seeing this, Yirong, who was working the sewing machine in the RV, said to Huami with a worried look on her face, "Miss Hua, if you don't have enough medical supplies, don't sell them. This woman who comes to buy medicine will not be the last one." Everyone knows that Huami and Gong Yi have a special relationship. Now that Gong Yi has forcefully seized the management and command of the medical center, there will definitely be many people who come to Huami to use her connections to buy medical supplies. Everyone thought that there would be medical supplies at the garrison, but only Yirong and others knew that the garrison's resources in this regard were even scarcer than those of the management. Today is my first time entering V after a long time. Compared to the past, I have changed a lot today, whether in age, experience, or state of mind. For a while, I doubted whether I had run out of ideas. The writing I wrote was no longer liked, and I received a lot of rejection. I looked at the story I wrote with disdain, and even I felt disgusted with myself. My original intention for writing this article was not so lofty. It was simply because I had to eat dirt in reality, and my editor called me several times, asking me to write about the end of the world. I looked at the messages from readers and the writers backstage, thought about it, and decided to just keep writing. Even though I'm not loved in real life, during the days I was missing, Someone left me messages in the backstage every day. On the internet, I am still remembered by people. Even if it is a small number or just a few, it gives me great strength. Having said so much, I actually just want to say that you should not underestimate every message you leave. These messages accumulated together can illuminate a confused me about the road ahead. Huami smiled. She felt that Yirong's concerns were reasonable. She didn't have many medical supplies. After upgrading the factory several times, she only stockpiled a few 100,000 or so medical supplies. Because she hasn't set up a stall to sell things recently, the medical supplies have not been moved. The only things that can be moved a little bit are adult respirators and ethanol, because these two medical supplies are needed by the rescue team. But the Shangqing rescue team does not have many people, and no matter how fast they are consumed, not much can be consumed every day. Thinking of this, the only things that can be moved a little bit are adult respirators and ethanol, because these two medical supplies are needed by the rescue team. But the Shangqing rescue team does not have many people, and no matter how fast they are consumed, not much can be consumed every day. Thinking of this, Huami thought that since he had already come out of the emergency area, he decided to go and take a look at the supplies department that was being guarded. A bunch of things were placed on the table of the RV, and Yirong was told, if anyone else comes to buy medical supplies, you can sell them to them and ask them to scan the code. It's not a big deal. Seeing Yirong respond, Huami called Dafu and Xiaofu, and while collecting supplies, she took the two children out for a walk. Not long after she left, Huami's phone started to ring with the sound of payment reminders. Yirong sent her a message. Yirong, Miss Hua, people have been coming to buy medical supplies one after another. I saw that there were too many people, so I limited the quantity. Each person can only buy one of each medical supply. Huami, sure, you arrange it. She put down her phone, held her umbrella and looked up, and found that she had already walked to the door of the open space where the garrison was stationed. The entrance was too crowded. An extra-large trailer, pulling vegetables nearly 5 meters high, was blocking the entrance to the open space. This is a trailer of Shanghai Qing. Huami walked quickly forward and saw the trailer driver arguing with the medical supervisor of the emergency area. Seeing her coming, the garrison on guard trotted over and saluted Huami. What is this for? Huami tilted her head to look and saw that the medical director Kaming Hong was followed by 2 grassroots administrators. The garrison replied, Mr. Ku is the medical supervisor of the emergency area. He said he wanted to go in to see if there were any medical supplies. He happened to run into a driver who was delivering vegetables. We all had to unload the vegetables, so no one had time to take care of Mr. Ku, so we didn't let him in. So Kaming Hong started arguing with the garrison at the supply storage area. The driver who was delivering the Shanghai Qing was in a hurry to unload the goods and was going to tow the cargo. Seeing Kaming Hong making a fuss, he rolled up his sleeves, got out of the car, and started arguing with Kaming Hong. Huami nodded, slowly walked past the edge of the battlefield, and brought Dafu and Xiaofu into the storage area. From behind her, Kaming Hong's voice came. Isn't the medical center under the management of Captain Gong? Why won't you let me in? We don't have any medical supplies. Nothing? How could that woman bring her child in? Why can't I go in? How could your Gong be so partial? He screamed in anxiety. Huami frowned and looked back at Kaming Hong. Pursing her lips, Huami walked into the open space where supplies were stored, sent the 2 children out for a walk, and began to collect supplies. Before entering the emergency area, she got a batch of tarpaulins for the garrison and asked them to cover the supplies stored on the open space. The garrisons did a great job. They used sewing machines to stitch pieces of garrison tarpaulin together and supported them with steel pipes to create several large sheds. Gasoline barrels and diesel barrels are placed in one shed. Rice is placed in another shed. Vegetables are placed in another shed. Medical supplies are placed in another shed, and rescue equipment is placed in another shed. There was also a small shed where Huami's express delivery was stored. Because she bought all the rescue equipment for the rescue team online, the post office boss sent all the rescue equipment to the express delivery station outside the city. These rescue equipments are used by the rescue team every day. So Gong Yi instructed the garrison to send special personnel to go out of the city to get them every day. Anyway, they were going out of the city to pick up a package. The garrison saw Huami's package, checked the last digit of Huami's cell phone number, and directly helped Huami bring back the supplies to the vacant space. Huami entered the shed and saw that she could collect supplies here and avoid everyone's sight. At present, vegetables are the most abundant in the several large greenhouses, and they are almost full. If the trailer of Shanghai greens outside was unloaded, it would definitely be piled up in the rain. Huami hurriedly collected more than 30 tons of vegetables, but found that she had not even collected half of the stock in the vegetable shed. It's just that about 30 tons of vegetables are missing, nothing noticeable. For the remaining hundreds of tons of vegetables, in order not to arouse suspicion, she could only collect a little bit every day like an ant-moving house. But these vegetables left outside the level 7 storage will soon go bad. Many of the vegetables piled next to the tarpaulin were wilting due to dryness and lack of water. Huami walked out of the vegetable shed, took out her phone, and sent a message to Gong Yi. Huami, how do you arrange meals for the rescue team? Can we eat vegetables for every meal during this period? Because I bought too many vegetables, they will not be fresh if we don't eat them later. Gong Yi, he didn't have time to reply to Huami's message, so he just replied with a few dots and let Huami understand the meaning herself. Huami then automatically understood that from now on, the garrisons and lifeguards would eat vegetables for 3 meals a day. She happily walked out of the shed where supplies were stored and took a look outside. Kuminghong outside no longer had the energy to argue, so he found a stool and sat down, silently angry. When the other garrisons saw this, they ignored him and helped the trailer driver unload the Shanghai green. Huami glanced at Kuminghong, and Kuminghong glared at Huami. The look in his eyes was as if he was looking at a disaster in troubled times. Laugh. Huami sneered, went to the garrison tent, and looked at the medical supplies collection records of the past few days. She asked the garrison officer in charge of record keeping, "Most of the medical supplies I bought last time were borrowed by the emergency department. Did the emergency department pay for them?" "No, the emergency department said it was a matter of life and death. They didn't give me any money, nor did they say when I would pay." The garrison reported on their duties, paused, and then talked about the quarrel that Kuminghong had come to today. Usually, they wanted to borrow our medical supplies from the emergency area, and we didn't say anything or have any opinions. But they actually drove our people out of the emergency area, and we don't have much medical supplies of our own. This is the main reason why the garrisons today have a bad attitude towards Kuminghong. Why did they lend the rescue team medical supplies and not give them any special care? Although Gong Yi did not say anything about this matter, no one from top to bottom, whether it was the rescue team or the garrison, was convinced. The emergency area was originally managed by the management, and except for food and drinks, the supply of almost all medical supplies was very poor. It was so bad that Kuminghong, the medical director of the emergency area, often came here with a shameless face to borrow medical supplies. The supply of materials for the garrison and the logistics management of the garrison system are currently under the responsibility of Huami. The garrison and management levels are 2 different operating systems. Any supplies originally stationed there cannot be given to the emergency area because the purchase volume of these medical supplies is far less than that purchased by the management. What's more, Huami only purchased 20,000 respirators and 20,000 ethanol for the rescue team each time. Although they have never been in short supply, these 2 types of medical supplies are needed by the rescue team on a daily basis. Large consumption. Huami nodded and said to the garrison in the tent, "I understand. Let Mr. Ku settle the previous bill. I will get some more respirators, ethanol, painkillers, sterile gauze, and hemostatic gel. Don't let the emergency department borrow them again. Let's go. If the emergency department wants them, let them buy them at the market price." She emphasized the word borrow. These were all produced by her and sold to the rescue team. If the emergency department needs them, they should just pay for them. Otherwise, if this continues for a long time, even if Gong Yi has 20 billion, it will not be enough to cover such consumption. The garrison responded, and after Huami left, he settled a price and asked Kuminghong to settle the account. At the entrance of the empty space where supplies were stored, Kuminghong looked at the bill of several 100,000 in his hand with a troubled look on his face. "Why are there so many? Did you count correctly? Every time you borrowed medical supplies from us, you wrote an IOU. For every amount on this bill, you can find an IOU written by you." The garrison said expressionlessly, I'm sorry. The garrison has always been so rigid in doing things. Therefore, every time, no matter how hurried Kaming Hong was, the garrison would ask him to write an IOU. Kaming Hong was impatient. All right, whatever you say is what I want to say. Okay, hurry up and give me a respirator and ethanol. Also, what other medical supplies can you get? Pay the bill first, then use the money to make the purchase. This is the price list. It contains a catalog of all the medical supplies in our warehouse. The garrison strictly followed what Huami said, and no one was allowed to collect supplies without settling the bill. Kaming Hong took the catalog and looked at it. Self-priming filter type anti-particulate respirator, specification. Children, 588 yuan per piece. Self-priming filter type anti-particle respirator, specification. Adult, 888 yuan per piece. Ethanol, 988 yuan per bottle. Sterile gauze, 988 yuan per roll. Painkillers, 988 yuan per tablet. Hemostatic gel, 988 yuan per piece. You are robbing me. Kaming Hong was so angry that he almost exploded. It was so expensive, 988 yuan per painkiller. He had never heard of or seen such a thing. The garrison looked at Kaming Hong with sympathy. These were the prices set by Sister Hua. The price she sold it for outside the RV was a little higher, about 1,000 yuan, which was considered cheap when sold to the emergency department. Kaming Hong stamped his feet on the spot. At this time, he didn't have the courage to enter the warehouse guarded by the garrison to steal things. He just kept arguing. There is no such thing as you. You are cold-blooded and heartless. You simply watch people die without helping them. Well, when it comes to not helping someone in need, no one can compare to you. Are you going to buy it or not? If not, forget it. The garrison standing opposite Kaming Hong had a face full of sarcasm. Anyway, the people in the emergency area were short of medicine, so they could just go directly to Sister Hua's RV and use the special channel without delaying the injured to save themselves. Kaming Hong gritted his teeth. What else could he do? He had to buy it no matter how expensive it was. However, his credibility with the garrisons was not very good, so he had to pay off the money he owed before buying new medical supplies. So Kaming Hong hurriedly took the bill of hundreds of thousands of yuan and dejectedly returned to the emergency area. He slammed the bill on Qin Ziren's desk and said, "Go and settle the bill. If you don't, the rescue team won't give us any medical supplies." Qin Ziren glanced at the bill on the table and sneered. Hundreds of thousands of medical supplies bills. These are what I owed before I took office, right? Do you think I can just sign and pay for you without verifying it? You. Kaming Hong was already very angry at the garrison, and now he was even more angry with Qin Ziren. He said angrily, "You don't want to do this, and you don't want to do that. What do you think you are doing as the manager of this emergency department? If you keep going like this, I don't know how many people will die in this emergency department because of you." Qin Ziren laughed out of anger. "You don't have to provoke me. Last time, 2 lifeguards left the emergency area. The rescue team has long been resentful of us. Who knows if they cheated on the bill? Of course I have to verify it. Okay. You check it slowly." Kaming Hong turned around and slammed the door. After Kaming Hong left, Qin Ziren, the manager and commander of the emergency area, sat in the office and turned on the computer. Because of the continuous rain, the air is very vaporous. The wet hair fell on Qin Ziren's eyebrows, as if he had just washed his hair. His body was also incredibly moist, but he tried hard to ignore the discomfort in his body and stared at the computer screen, which contained information about Gong Yi. There is very little information about Gong Yi's resume that can be found online, and it is very short. Because of his identity, not even a single photo of him can be found online. But all the information that could be searched told Qin Ziren that Gong Yi was much better than him. While he was still feeling proud of a high-paying offer and thought he had become a winner in life, Gong Yi had already been working in the garrison camp, joining the grassroots rescue team to gain experience, and paving the way for entering the garrison headquarters in Xiangqing. At Gong Yi's age, he can enter the garrison headquarters in Xiangqing. As long as he doesn't make any big mistakes, he will definitely enter a better national garrison headquarters in the future. With great power, influence, youth, and a promising future, Gong Yi could even try to get the position of the country's commander-in-chief. In contrast, Qin Ziren had to beg for help from everyone. and spent a lot of effort and used a lot of connections to get a management and command position in the emergency area. He is indeed incomparable to Gong Yi. Qin Ziren, who was sitting in front of the computer, punched the screen and felt like vomiting blood. He glanced at the list of extremely expensive medical supplies from the Garrison Material Warehouse. I took out my cell phone, took a photo, and posted it on Xiangqing.com. The management system in the emergency area can no longer provide any medicine. The injured survivors were carried into the emergency area one after another, with several groups of people carried in every day. But the death rate of the injured gradually decreased. The surviving wounded spread the word. After applying it once, no matter how red or swollen the wound is, the ethanol will immediately reduce the inflammation. Take one tablet, and you will feel no pain in your whole body. Apply a thin layer of hemostatic gel to stop bleeding immediately. Sterile gauze that will never cause secondary infection after being wrapped. In the square of the rescue center, the store selling mineral water in the RV is owned by Sister Hua, who had beaten the grassroots administrator before. These medicines are a bit expensive and limited in quantity, but they are extremely effective. If used sparingly, the same medical supplies can be used for a long time. You know, most of the injured in this emergency area were dug out from the ruins of the earthquake, and they all suffered external injuries. With these medical supplies, external injuries are no problem at all. More and more people came to Huami's RV to buy medicine. Yirong, who was originally unable to operate the sewing machine, had to send Dafu and Xiaofu to help sell water and medicine. Huami made a fortune every day and couldn't stop smiling. The injured patients sneaked out of the emergency area every day to buy medicine, and they were rolling on the ground with laughter. As for the shortage of medical supplies in the emergency area, that should be a matter of concern to the management. No one would deliberately run up to Qin Ziren and tell the management that they had bought the magic medicine from Huami. It's not possible for the management to stop doing their job just because Gong Yi has taken away the power to manage order in the rescue center. The management still has to purchase what it needs to purchase and still has to pay back the money to the Garrison Material Depot. In the continuous rain, Dafu and Xiaofu sent away a few limping injured people and welcomed another one. But this person did not follow the usual path. He came to Huami's stall and did not buy water or medicine. "Boss, I saw from a distance that you have some tarpaulins. Do you want to sell them?" Selling, 200 per piece, 2 by 1. 5 size. Huami agreed immediately. In a level 7 factory, tarpaulins can be produced in unlimited quantities. If they are available for sale, why not sell them? It's only 2x 1.5 m, too small, and too expensive. The visitor leaned his head and did not bargain with Huami. He only glanced at Yirong, who was working on the sewing machine in the RV, and the folded raincoat and sighed. "Forget it. I won't buy it. The price is too ridiculous." He said this and turned and left. He was still cursing Huami, saying she was a profiteer or something like that. Inside the RV, Yirong felt a little dry for some reason and looked at Huami helplessly. "The quality of your tarpaulin is good, but at 200 yuan per sheet, no one will buy it. The most expensive tarpaulin is only around 10 yuan. Huami stood at the entrance of the RV, folding the tarpaulin in her hands, and said with a chuckle, "It's up to you to buy it or not. What can you buy with 200 yuan now? When cabbages cost hundreds of thousands per piece and antipyretic drugs cost millions per piece, they will feel that 200 yuan is really nothing." The drizzle in the sky was still falling. It had been raining for several days and nights, and everyone walking on the road was wet. Water vapor seemed to be everywhere, constantly seeping into the room. The floor seemed to be always wet, and it became dirty after walking on it in a short while. The earthquake continued to spread, but in the past few days, there was no news of an earthquake anywhere in Xiangqing. Instead, outside Xiangqing, there were villages everywhere that were affected by the earthquake. Many people are saying that the earthquake is contagious. Cities next door to each other have also started dancing together, one city spreading the infection to another. Everyone is holding hands and dancing happily. Outside Xiangqing, Gong Yi, with blood on his hands, moved a large rock, picked up a powerful flashlight and shone it into the ruins, then turned around and shouted, "Use the life detector." He turned around, and the person behind him immediately came forward with a life detector. Gong Yi found a place and sat down in the rain to rest. A lifeguard wearing a tarpaulin cape approached mysteriously. "Boss, I found something amazing." Gong Yi looked up and saw the other person stretch out his bloody hand, grab Gong Yi's hand, and touch his back. "What?" Gong Yi quickly retracted his hand and looked at the lifeguard in front of him in confusion. The young man smiled mysteriously and said, "Boss, feel your back again. Is it dry?" After he reminded him, Gong Yi touched his back with his backhand. He looked at the young man in front of him in surprise and asked, "What did you do?" The incessant rain kept falling. The atmosphere was not harmonious, and everyone was wet. "Even if I stay at home, it's still wet." Not to mention the lifeguards, who were still turning over stones in the ruins. Not to mention my whole body, even my underwear was wet. However, their backs were dry. The young man in the tarpaulin cloak touched his buttocks and said in amazement, "Boss, the back of my underwear is dry, but the front is wet." Gong Yi had a strange look on his face, and he secretly felt his underwear. His underwear was dry at the back and wet at the front. Why is this happening? The two of them looked at each other's cloak at the same time. The quality of this tarpaulin is really good. In the rain, Gong Yi winked at the lifeguard boy opposite him. The boy understood immediately and quickly got behind him and asked, "Are the back of your underwear dry and the front wet?" To determine if the tarpaulin was the cause, he asked every lifeguard at the ruins. After facing everyone's vigilant gazes and answering cautiously, he returned to Gong Yi and said, "Boss, I have confirmed that the brothers who wore the tarpaulin that Sister Hua gave them have dry backs. Even their underwear is dry, but their fronts are wet. Because there's no tarpaulin out front." Gong Yi made the final decision. But was it really just because of the good quality of the tarpaulin? He pulled the tarpaulin on his body suspiciously, and just in time he saw a garrison on the opposite side delivering supplies, holding a large stack of tarpaulin raincoats in his hands, walking out of the rain. At this moment, in the emergency area, everyone had wet hair and was distressed by the horribly humid weather. If it continues to be so moist, everything will grow hair, and bacteria will breed, which will be detrimental to wound recovery. Kaminghong, the medical director of the emergency area, was extremely anxious. He needed medical supplies and a dehumidifier. So he went to the garrison's material management office many times. No matter whether he quarreled or begged, the answer he got was always the same. If he couldn't pay off the previous bills, he would no longer be able to get medicine from the garrison's supply department. "Oh, you can't take any more. You should buy." And every time Kaminghong went to the garrison supply department, he would be blocked outside the supply department. After blocking it several times like this, Kaminghong suddenly understood something. He saw Huami outside the garrison logistics office several times, and every time he saw Huami entering and leaving the garrison logistics office freely. Kaminghong was so annoyed by what he saw. These are all debts of love that Qin Ziren has incurred. Qin Ziren still won't approve money for him to buy medicine. Kaminghong pondered carefully, afraid that he still had to find Qin Ziren for this matter. In the emergency area, outside the door of Qin Ziren's office, Fong Xian was full of moisture, with long hair moist and oily, holding a lunchbox in her hand, and asked carefully, "Brother Ziren, is it time to eat?" Qin Ziren raised his eyes, his cold eyes fixed on Fong Xian. Seeing Qin Ziren's gaze falling on her, Fong Xian tried hard to show off her enchanting figure. She was wearing a tight sweater dress today. It perfectly outlines her fine figure and the deep Y on her chest. If you want to please others with your beauty, you should dress yourself up carefully every day. But the humid air made everything seem sticky and suffocating. Qin Ziren was in no mood. He loosened his tie on his collar. "Fong Xian, let me ask you, when did your sister get to know Gong Yi?" This was something he couldn't figure out these past few days. The confusion in his heart and the extremely humid environment made him look ugly and cold. "Gong Yi? Who is that?" Fong Xian seemed confused and felt that the name was too tacky. "Brother Ziren, are you talking about the truck driver? Or the pretty boy who sells things at the stall? I'm sure my sister didn't intentionally flirt with these men. It would have been better if she didn't say that." As soon as she said that, Qin Ziren's face turned several shades darker. In the past, he had great confidence in his charm because he felt that Huami would never find a man better than him. But this Gong Yi remembered the indescribable feeling of intimacy when Gong Yi took Huami away. What is the relationship between these two people? If Qin Ziren doesn't figure this out, he will feel unwell. So he raised his eyes to look at Fong Xian. Forget it. It's useless to ask you. Where is Dai Fong? Fong Xian did not answer Qin Ziren. She just looked at Qin Ziren's bloody bandage and cried, Brother Ziren, how could I bear to hurt your hand? How come it's been so many days and your hand hasn't healed yet? Does it still hurt? I'll call a doctor for you right away. It's already this time, and she's still talking about this nonsense. Qin Ziren asked again angrily, I asked you where is Dai Fong? Where did she go? At this critical moment, there were already a lot of people, and a large number of people were knocked out by Huami. How did she manage to defeat such a large number of grassroots administrators by herself? Qin Ziren didn't have time to care about this now. He just wanted to catch Huami back as soon as possible. She was his, so she had to be his little woman. But there are only a few people available now. Only after finding Dai Fong first can I send people to look for Huami. Fong Xian was yelled at and started to cry. She was shaking with fear. Outside. She's outside. Wuh. Call her over here. Qin Ziren spoke in an ordering tone, looking at Fong Xian, who was crying with a look of impatience. And Fong Xian also behaved very obediently. At this moment, it was even more impossible for her to lose Qin Ziren's favor. Otherwise, who would she find to rely on? She quickly turned around and walked out of Qin Ziren's office, but she had no intention of asking Dai Fong to go to Qin Ziren's office so soon. Instead, he dawdled and found Kuming Hong, the chief medical officer of the emergency area. Fong Xian said in a commanding tone, Brother Ziren's hand is seriously injured. Call the best doctor here to check Brother Ziren's hand. Kuming Hong, the chief medical officer who was so busy that he was bald, was about to look for Qin Ziren when he glared at Fong Xian. Are you here to manage the emergency area, or to cause trouble? The best doctor hadn't slept for several days and nights and had been busy saving lives. He was still performing surgery in the hall. How to check Qin Ziren's hand? Fong Xian took the chicken feather as a command and looked at Kuming Hong with a ferocious face. What do you mean? You don't want to be the chief medical officer anymore? You have never listened to Brother Ziren's words. I think you have reached the end of your career as the chief medical officer. Okay. You get me off. I want you to get me off. Okay? Kuming Hong was so angry that several strands of his hair fell out. He pushed Fong Xian away. Please don't get in my way. He also didn't know why Qin Ziren left Fong Xian in the emergency area. Was it because these two people were doing that kind of thing when the earthquake happened? It was well known that the two were not wearing pants when they were carried to the emergency area by the lifeguards. But the unusual relationship between the two people cannot be brought to a place where human lives are at stake. After all, Qin Ziren had issued an order before, asking all conscious and hopeless patients to leave the emergency area, leaving the scarce medical resources for those who deserve to be saved. The one called Dai Fong, who led the grassroots administrators like gangsters, threw this person out and that person out, but she never thought of throwing Fong Xian out. There is also the girl named Huami. It is obvious that Qin Ziren is entangled with Fong Xian, while at the same time he is reluctant to part with Huami. Huami has a special relationship with Gong Yi. Kuming Hong really couldn't stand this kind of behavior. Qin Ziren and his gang seemed to treat the emergency area as their private garden and did whatever they wanted. Although it was Gong Yi who stopped Qin Ziren last time. Otherwise, who knows how many people would have died in this emergency area. But the garrison supplies department no longer provided medicine. It's obvious. On the surface, it's a matter of money. In fact, it was because the messy emotional accounts among Qin Ziren, Fong Xian, Huami, and Gong Yi were not clear. Qin Ziren was in the office, waiting for Fong Xian to bring Dai Fong to him. Qin Ziren impatiently listened to Kuming Hong's intentions and said, Now my girlfriend has been stolen by Gong Yi, and you don't blame Gong Yi, but you tell me to take a step back and the world will be clear. What kind of logic is this? Kuming Hong wanted to say more, but Qin Ziren interrupted the old man. How about this? Since you think this is a relationship problem between us and it has delayed the supply of medical supplies, go and help me persuade me to come back. Kuming Hong, who was standing opposite Qin Ziren, had a look of astonishment on his face. He didn't expect that Qin Ziren was such a mean person. In order to win back Huami's heart, has Qin Ziren tried every possible means? As long as Huami can come back to me, let alone signing and approving the money to return it to the garrison rescue team. Even if I approve a little more for you, that's no problem. Qin Ziren abused public power for personal gain and looked at Kaming Hong with a sense of control. There was no way. Kaming Hong, a person who was responsible but had no real power, could not refuse Qin Ziren at all. He walked out of Qin Ziren's office dejectedly, looking at the medical staff in white coats walking hurriedly in the bustling emergency area. A skilled cook cannot cook without rice. No matter how skilled his people are, they cannot stop the shortage of medical supplies. As Kaming Hong took a step, he saw a little boy in front of him, with one leg tied with white gauze, running past him happily. A woman followed behind him, holding a bottle of ethanol in her hand, and was chasing after him anxiously. "Hey, baby, hurry up and apply the medicine." Before she could finish her words, she saw Kaming Hong and quickly hid the half bottle of ethanol in her hand. She looked as if she was afraid that Kaming Hong would see her. Kaming Hong looked confused. He remembered that when the little boy was brought over, his leg was covered in blood. Let alone being as lively as now, it would be difficult to survive. It's only been a few days now. I can actually run and laugh. Thinking of the mother's action of hiding the medicine just now, Kaming Hong couldn't help but feel sad. He quickly quickened his pace and ran out to the emergency area to find Huami. Huami was sitting on the pedal of the RV, looking at the drizzle and feeling drowsy. People came to buy medicine in waves, and word of mouth spread. Now, not only people in the emergency area came to buy medicine, but buyers from the rescue center also appeared. Fortunately, Yurong limited the quantity. Otherwise, Huami would be a little worried that the hundreds of thousands of medical supplies in her level 7 warehouse would not be enough. Dafu and Xiaofu were standing in front of the empty shelves, one selling water and the other selling medicine. The two kids were now very familiar with doing business. Kaming Hong stood in the rain and watched, and finally a group of survivors came with medicine and left happily. He walked forward a little angrily, entered the awning of the RV, and said to Huami in a sarcastic tone, "Miss Hua is really generous. It seems that her relationship with Captain Gong is developing well. She even started reselling medical supplies. What this means is that Huami is using the medical supplies from the garrison material warehouse to make personal profits, right?" Huami sat on the pedal. Her sleepy eyes finally cleared up a little. She looked at the bald Kaming Hong with a strange smile on her face. "Hey, look, who's here? It turns out to be the medical director who kicked Chao Feng and Tang Yu out of the emergency area. Who doesn't know how to be sarcastic? Really?" Kaming Hong put away his umbrella, feeling a little uncomfortable breathing because of the thick moisture in the air. He took a breath and said, "Ms. Hua, let me be frank. You know that because of you guys, our emergency department is running out of medical supplies." Wait a minute. Huami stood up and compared her height with Kaming Hong. Then she took a step back and stood on the pedal of the RV, looking down at Kaming Hong. "What did you say? The shortage of medical supplies in your emergency department is because of us? Which ones? Tell me about it." He sneered again. "If you don't sort this out for me today, don't even think about leaving alive. Believe it or not, Huami wants to kill him in a matter of minutes." Kaming Hong tried hard to raise his head and look up at Huami. The height difference put a lot of pressure on him, but he couldn't lose this battle, so he immediately said, "First of all, you shouldn't bring your children's private affairs to a place like this. What is the emergency area? It not only accommodates the seriously injured patients from Shangqing, but also the injured from several nearby disaster-stricken cities." He swallowed his saliva, his neck aching from tilting his head back. "I know Qin Ziren cheated on your cousin, and you feel bad, but you can't take revenge on Gong Yi and stop him from lending medical supplies to the emergency department. Ms. Hua, you shouldn't use personal gain to gain public benefits by taking medical supplies from the emergency area and selling them here at a high price." He spoke one sentence at a time, expressing all his dissatisfaction over the past few days. Because he couldn't criticize Qin Ziren, he didn't dare to criticize Gong Yi, and he disdained to criticize Fong Xian. So he caught Huami and started scolding her like he was scolding a primary school student. Huami rubbed her palms, and before Kuming-hong finished scolding her, she said, "What? You cursed?" Kuming-hong glared at Huami. She actually cursed? He has been working in the clinical frontline for more than 10 years, and later taught medicine in university for more than 10 years. Now he is in his 50s and was given the task of treating patients in an emergency. He has devoted himself to the thousands or tens of thousands of injured patients in the emergency area. Although he did not do a good job, he has a clear conscience. The glass-hearted Kuming-hong suddenly began to breathe rapidly, feeling the thin air, and his vision was black. She pressed her uncomfortable stomach with one hand. Facing a man like Kuming-hong, it was not right to hit him, nor was it right not to hit him. She could only be angry. "Let me explain your theory to you. I was blind before. It's true that I had a crush on Qin Ziren, but I made a decisive decision. Why would I disregard the lives of thousands of people in the emergency department for a cheating scumbag? Should I feel sorry for him? You said it was me who told Gong Yi not to lend medical supplies to your emergency department. Ha 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 ha, you really think too highly of me in Gong Yi's heart. A man like Gong Yi is just a career loser. Don't you see that? Besides, isn't the lack of medical supplies in your emergency area due to the lack of medical supplies from outside the city? Don't tell me I'm ignorant. I supply the medical supplies for the entire garrison supply department. I know more about it than you do." Yirong, who was wearing a raincoat in the RV, rushed out and looked at Kuming-hong, who was lying on the ground and breathing difficultly. Then he looked at Huami, who had an innocent look on her face. "Huami, what are you looking at me for? It's definitely not me who scolded him and made him faint. How could she have the ability to scold someone so hard that he fainted? If she really had this ability, wouldn't she be invincible?" Huami's words were so arrogant that Yirong looked a little suspicious. Before Huami lost her temper, Yirong hurried forward, stretched out her finger, and probed Kuming-hong's breath. "He looks like he's having trouble breathing, Miss Hua. What should we do? Should we send him back to the emergency room?" Huami frowned on the pedal. It was really a trouble. If it was just an ordinary person, she would just ignore it. But Kuming-hong is the medical supervisor of the emergency area. In other words, all medical supervisors in the entire emergency area listen to Kuming-hong. This position is important, but the power is not that great. Because Kuming-hong is only in charge of medical matters, Qin Ziren is in charge of everything else. And Kuming-hong has to listen to Qin Ziren. This person fainted in front of Huami. I really want to pretend that I don't know him. He looks very short of oxygen. Let's get him on the bus and give him artificial respiration or something. Huami finally compromised with her conscience. Kuming-hong was just a bit of a fussy pedant, but he was not a wicked person. She jumped off the pedal, picked up Kuming-hong with one hand, and carried Kuming-hong onto the bus under the astonished gazes of Yirong, Dafu, and Xiaofu. It's really as easy as picking up a rag. But when you think about the fact that she can beat a large group of men by herself, it doesn't seem strange. The man was brought into the car by Huami Chaofeng, who was covered with membranes, was frightened and thought that Huami had killed someone and was carrying a corpse into the car, intending to destroy the evidence. His first reaction was to jump up from the warm and dry couch and asked nervously, "Sister Hua, did anyone see it along the way? He's not dead, and I didn't scold him into unconsciousness." Huami rolled her eyes at Chaofeng in annoyance and emphasized one sentence. "She just fainted. And, absolutely, definitely, and definitely, it had nothing to do with Huami. Anyone who tries to scam Huami will be killed." Chaofeng suddenly jumped up, and his movements were so agile. Huamidu waved his hand and asked him to lie down. "Behave yourself. If I really kill you, I don't need your help. Healing your own injuries is the greatest help to me." Anyway, the person fainted in front of Huami, so it was useless to save him at this time. He had already been brought onto the bus. So, next, a problem arose. Who will give Kuming-hong artificial respiration? Huami, the factory director, Fu, Chaofeng, who was covered in membranes, and Yirong, who got in the car later, all thought of this question at the same time. Then everyone focused their attention on the factory director. I may not." The factory director looked very reluctant. He was about the same age as Kuming-hong and had a similar hairstyle, but he had a few more hairs than Kuming-hong. But this was not a reason for him to give Kuming-hong artificial respiration. Ah Fu patted the factory director on the shoulder. We are all in this world together. Saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda. Chow Feng was lying on the couch, teaching on the spot, pinch his nose and open his jaw, like this, like that, like that. Right. Under the gaze of everyone, the factory director pouted with a fearless look on his face and pushed Kuming Hong's mouth. Just when their mouths were about to meet, Kuming Hong suddenly opened his eyes and gasped for air. Oxygen, oxygen. The air is too humid, the oxygen is too thin. He shouted, slapped the factory director's face to the side, took out his cell phone tremblingly, called Qin Ziren, and shouted, dehumidifiers, oxygen concentrators, people are going to die. A lot of people are going to die. Everyone looked at Kuming Hong, their nerves tense, fearing that Kuming Hong would not be able to distinguish right from wrong again and provoke Huami to scold them. But Kuming Hong got up and ran, and while running, he took out a respirator produced by Huami Level 7 factory from his pocket and put it on. This is the respirator that Huami sold to the Garrison Supplies Department and was later borrowed by the Emergency Department branch. Kuming Hong didn't have time to quarrel with Huami. He was in a hurry to find Qin Ziren and had no time to scold Huami. In the emergency room, Qin Ziren pointed at Daifeng, who was standing in the office, and said, "You go down first. It will be good for you to coax me back." Daifeng stood in front of Qin Ziren's desk with wet hair and body full of moisture. She responded, turned and left, and before leaving she rolled her eyes at Kuming Hong, who was stumbling towards her in a hurry. After Daifeng left, Qin Ziren slowly and gently held his injured hand. "Mr. Ku has persuaded my Ami to come back? Haven't you already found someone to help you coax her?" Kuming Hong wore an adult respirator on his face and felt his airway strangely comfortable. "I came here to tell you something. Haven't you noticed that it's been raining lately? The moisture content in the air is getting higher and higher." "I didn't notice." To be honest, Qin Ziren was in good physical condition and didn't feel any difficulty in breathing. Even if he did feel a little uncomfortable, Qin Ziren thought it was normal. He had just survived a disaster in the ruins, so how could his body recover so quickly? Seeing Qin Ziren disagreeing, Kuming Hong became anxious. "Then send all the administrators out and get some measuring instruments to measure the humidity and oxygen content in the air. This is a serious problem. Don't take it lightly. You might die." Qin Ziren looked as if he had heard but not remembered. All he wanted now was to defeat Gong Yi, take Huami back from Gong Yi, and wash away his shame. "Where can I find air humidity and oxygen content in the air?" He sneered, appearing rude and arrogant. "Mr. Ku also knows that our management level is short of staff. Otherwise, he would not let me be the management commander. If you want me to send you someone, you have to look at the number of our administrators. Why can't I explain it clearly? What on earth is Qin Ziren here for? As the manager of the emergency area, is he here to pick up girls or to do his job?" Kuming Hong was so anxious that he scratched his hair. Oh, without hair, he could only walk around Qin Ziren's office like an ant on a hot pot. "Okay, if you don't want to send people to measure the humidity and oxygen content in the air, then at least you have to find a way to get the medical supplies outside the city into the city. There are respirators among the medical supplies. This is very important. It is really important for every person to have a respirator." There were more than a few tons of medical supplies stranded outside Xiangqing. Could a few grassroots managers in the emergency area bring such a large amount of medical supplies back to Xiangqing? Qin Ziren felt that Kuming Hong looked down on the management class. Kuming Hong pounded the table and said angrily, "Mr. Qin, what do you mean by this? We are short of manpower now. So why do you still send people out to find women for you? The emergency area needs medical supplies, needs medical supplies, needs medical supplies." This is the problem that Kuming Hong has been telling Qin Ziren about for a long time. But what has Qin Ziren, the manager and commander, been doing all this time? Not only has he failed to ease all the conflicts, he has also intensified all of them. Even the management rights of the entire temporary rescue center were lost by Qin Ziren. Qin Ziren, who was sitting leisurely, looked at Kuming Hong impatiently. "Do I need to report to you when I do things? If you are short of manpower, go find Gong Yi. Aren't all the garrisons in this rescue center under his command?" Kuming Hong was stunned. Looking at Qin Ziren in disbelief, "Have you lost your mind? You are the one in charge of the emergency area, and it is your responsibility to ensure the normal operation of the emergency area. Even though Gong Yi has taken over the management of the rescue center, isn't it your job to purchase medical supplies for the emergency area? He knew that Qin Ziren was rejected by Gong Yi. That day, Kaminghong followed behind Qin Ziren and watched Gong Yi openly reject Qin Ziren's order to clear the people. The management is responsible for calming people's hearts and maintaining order in a civilized manner. The garrison is responsible for maintaining order through violence. It was Kaminghong. He also felt that at this time the injured's resistance should not be intensified. What Qin Ziren did was disrupting order. Isn't it natural for Gong Yi to suppress Qin Ziren? If Gong Yi didn't take away the management rights, who knows what would have happened to this place at the hands of Qin Ziren? Judging from the current humidity in the air, many of the injured would not survive the drizzle. That's enough. Qin Ziren slammed the table and stood up, furious at what Kaminghong said. Kaminghong, even if you say it to the sky, there is no way to transport medical supplies to Xiangqing for you now. You can either bring the medical staff and the injured to move them yourself, or ask Gong Yi for help. If you come to me, I can't do anything. Or maybe his position is too low. He should work his way up. At least it should be operational to the point where they can be deployed for garrison at will with just a single word. Qin Ziren's eyes flickered as he watched Kaminghong slam the door and leave. He picked up the phone and started to use his connections. Kaminghong, who was yelled at by him, was extremely disappointed with Qin Ziren and extremely anxious about the overall environment. He suddenly remembered what Huami said. She said that she provided medical supplies for the garrison material depot, and she was well aware that medical supplies could not enter the city. Kaminghong hurried out of the emergency area and said to the nurse standing at the door, Yes, now quickly turn all the air conditioners in the emergency area to dehumidification mode. Listen to me, I'm going to go out for a while. Don't pay any attention to them. If they start making trouble, call me." After saying this, Kaminghong was about to leave again, but then he seemed to remember something and turned back to tell the nurse, "Bring on respirators and organize the injured to do cardiopulmonary exercises." Finally, Kaminghong finished his instructions, and with the young nurse nodding continuously, he quickly left the emergency area and ran towards Huami's RV. After finding Huami, Kaminghong didn't say a word, but gave Huami a kind and amiable smile. Huami shook the raincoat in her hand and ignored him. "Miss Hua, Xiao Hua, I was wrong before." Kaminghong reached out to help Huami put on her raincoat. His face, which was covered with a respirator, showed a pair of eyes that looked particularly flattering. "I shouldn't have believed Qin Ziren's one-sided words and underestimated you, Miss Hua. No, you are such an important person. Please don't use honorifics to me. What you mean by you and yours is really creepy. I don't know what you want to do." Huami turned around with a stack of raincoats and placed them on the rack outside the RV. Kaminghong hurried over to help, smiling cheekily. "I was wrong. Miss Hua, you have a big heart, so don't get angry with your uncle. Let me just say that since you can provide supplies to the garrison supply department, how much of this stuff can you get?" He pointed to the respirator on his face, which was urgently needed. He didn't know if it was his illusion, but as soon as he took off the respirator on his face, he felt difficulty breathing, but as soon as he put it on, he felt breathing smoothly. Moreover, the filtered air is very fresh, giving you the feeling of being in an oxygen bar. Don't ask him why he feels so clear, because his upper and lower respiratory tracts are sensitive. That's why he studied medicine since he was a child. Huami sneered. "Respirators? Oh, I still have hundreds of thousands of them. What's the matter? Didn't you say that I used the garrison supplies for personal gain? You want to buy the respirators in my hand? Then aren't you helping me to make a personal gain?" "Hey, uncle, that was nonsense. Apologize, apologize." "Ha ha ha ha. Xiaohua, this is all the savings of uncle in his life. A total of more than 1 million. Just look at how many respirators you can buy with this." Kaminghong took out a bank card and stuffed it into Huami's hand. Huami Mingyin's face froze, and her cold heart seemed to be punched with a big hole by this bad old man, gushing out bitter water. She looked down at the bank card in her hand, frowned and asked, "Why did you buy so many respirators?" "Uncle suspects there's something wrong with the air, but it's hard to say without testing." Kaminghong paused and continued, "Look, our emergency department and your garrison material department are stuck here just because of a few 100,000 yuan. It's really difficult to deal with. It's just a matter of money. I don't know why it's like this. Anyway, Kuminghong couldn't understand Qin Ziren. It was just a few 100,000. There were thousands of seriously injured patients in the emergency area, and only a few 100,000 medical supplies were borrowed from the garrison material department. Is that a lot? But Qin Ziren said that it needed to be verified, and it needed to be verified over and over again. I don't know when the verification will be completed. Kuminghong felt that it was not necessary. Really, he felt heartbroken that thousands or even tens of thousands of people were killed for just a few $100,000. So the management refused to sign and pay the bill, so Kuminghong used his own money to buy it. I can't just watch those seriously injured patients die in front of me. Huami has an unusually big appetite. When Kuminghong heard Huami's conditions, he was so frightened that his heart muscle couldn't help but tremble. He said, "So much medical supplies for this matter because all the injured in several surrounding disaster-stricken cities were sent to Shangqing. All the medical aid supplies from all walks of life were also sent to Shangqing. The number is unimaginable. Huami has such a big appetite. Does he want them all? Or just a part of it? If it's quantity for quantity, I can't agree to it." Huami said directly, "I want them all. I want all the medical supplies squeezed outside the city." But Kuminghong struggled, somewhat unwillingly, because he didn't know how many respirators Huami had. And the few types of medical supplies Huami had currently could only be used to treat external injuries. There are more than just these types of medical supplies. Huami put the raincoats on the shelf in order. Don't say but. You don't have any choice now, and as time goes by, your choices will become fewer and fewer. Also, you think it's a pity and not worth it now. But if you wait a few days, you won't think so. Because those medical supplies, without my help, will only be piled up outside Shangqing. Do you rely on a loser like Qin Ziren to transport them into the city for you? Think about it yourself. Is it realistic? After all the talk, we are back to the starting point. The fundamental reason why there is a shortage of medical supplies in the emergency area is that the medical supplies have been stranded outside Shangqing and have not been transported into Shangqing. One batch is pressing on another batch, and another batch is pressing on another batch. I don't know how much supplies are stuck on the road. The more supplies were piled up, the harder it was to move, because there was no good road outside Shangqing for the large trailers transporting medical supplies to pass. All the main roads are broken, and the small roads, which are only wide enough for one private car, are also extremely congested. Even the small roads are at risk of breaking at any time. So those medical supplies are piled up outside the city and are not used at all. It would be better to consider the current predicament and use these thousands of tons of medical supplies to exchange for Huami's medical supplies. Kuminghong was heartbroken. He beat his chest. How am I going to explain this? So many medical supplies, only to exchange for a few respirators? How am I going to explain this to Commander Qin? Huami smiled. Her fox eyes were so lively that they seemed to be able to bewitch people. You have a way. I don't have to worry about it, Mr. Ku. With your connections in the medical field, this is a piece of cake. After a pause, she patted Kuminghong on the shoulder, showing that she trusted him very much. Besides, I have more than one or two respirators. I will provide you with as many respirators, sterile gauze, hemostatic gel, and ethanol as your thousands of tons of medical supplies are worth. The prices are clearly marked. I believe in your choice today. Don't be blind when joining the team. Open your eyes and see who is the most reliable. It is obvious that compared with a waste like Qin Ziren, Huami is more reliable. Kuminghong was moved. It is indeed as Huami said, no matter how many thousands or tens of thousands of tons of medical supplies there are, if they are not used, they are just numbers there. What's more, Huami also has clearly marked prices. The value of these medical supplies piled up outside the city determines the amount of medical supplies you can get from Huami. How can you be so cowardly when it comes to human lives? But Qin Ziren and I can't bring so many medical supplies into the city. How are you going to bring them in? Kuminghong began to think about this problem. Since his own affairs were still unresolved, he began to worry about Huami. Huami smiled and said, "This is not something you should worry about, Uncle Ke. You just need to complete the formalities for me. As for other things, such as the transportation of medical supplies, she naturally had ways to deal with them. Looking at the confident smile on her face, Kaminghong naturally thought of the unusual relationship between Huami and Gong Yi. Yes, there were thousands of garrisons in Xiangqing. If each of them helped to carry a bundle of medical supplies and trudged through the ruins on foot, wouldn't they have been transported in safely? He didn't waste any time and went back to the emergency area to find all the medical supplies documents piled up outside the city, then personally signed a document to entrust Huami to receive these medical supplies. Kaminghong has authority over all matters concerning medical matters. When Kaminghong came out of the office with a thick stack of documents, he happened to see Fong Xian, with her deep Y exposed, walking into Qin Ziren's office with a twist of her waist. The two of them drew the curtains, and no one knew what they were doing in the office. Kaminghong didn't have time to care about these two immoral people. He just quickly found Huami and gave her all the documents in his hand. Huami had already prepared for him a respirator X50,000, sterile gauze X5,000, hemostatic gel X800, and ethanol X10,000. Believe Huami, so many medical supplies coming out of the Level 7 factory are enough for the emergency area to use for a long time. After the two completed the transaction, Huami turned around and got on the bus and found Afu again. Since Afu could drive a large trailer, she asked Afu to drive out the medical supplies piled up outside the city one by one. After hearing the reason, Afu asked in confusion, "But where do we put it after we open it? Just look at the vegetable trailers that are hauled to the garrison supplies every day, and you will know that one large trailer can basically take up an entire road. It's not easy to turn it around, and it's not easy to put it anywhere, because it will jam traffic wherever it is placed." It was blocked, so it couldn't be moved. Even if Huami asked Afu to drive the big trailers out one by one and put them somewhere else, if they piled up too much, it would still cause blockage. "I'll go out of the city with you. Just drive out slowly and find a secluded place with no one around. I'll think of a way." She was ready to leave the city. As she was speaking, Huami's cell phone rang. She picked it up and saw that it was Huajing calling her. "Miss Hua, do you need to pick the fruit trees you transplanted?" Huami suddenly remembered that her mistake was because she only remembered to collect the straw for matting. After that, she forgot about the oranges, apples, and grapefruits on the other 3 square meters of black soil. After a few days, the orange trees, apple trees, and pomelo trees on the other 3 square meters of black soil were full of fruits, which were seen by Huajing, who came over. Fortunately, Huajing didn't think too much about it. He just thought that the orange trees, apple trees, and pomelo trees that appeared were transplanted by Huami. "It's like this, Miss Hua. I know you are capable. We have relatives who have suffered from coronary heart disease, and some relatives who have heart disease. Some relatives drove out of the city to pick up a package, and the road was slippery due to the rain, and they crashed their cars. He also wanted to work for Huami to see if he could exchange it for some medical supplies. Many of Huajing's relatives have more medical supplies than just those for treating external injuries. Xiangqing has become like this. People with underlying diseases have been cut off from the supply of medicines they need to take all year round. Now most of the medical staff in the city have been transferred to the emergency area of the rescue center, so it is very difficult to find a doctor to check the injuries and illnesses of Huajing's relatives, not to mention the related medicines. Medical supplies are in short supply in Xiangqing now. Huajing also learned from his family that Huami's RV sells medical supplies. Although they are 3-no products, it is said that these medicines are specially supplied for garrisons. How else to explain the lack of any manufacturer's trademark? Nowadays, as long as something is labeled specially supplied for garrison, it proves that it is very good. In fact, Huami's medicine has a very good reputation. So Huajing wanted VIP treatment in a special channel. He knew that as long as he worked for Miss Hua, he would be a VIP. Huami answered the phone, got off the bus, and said, "I can only provide respirators, ethanol, sterile gauze, painkillers, and hemostatic gel for the time being, but you have to pay for these things, and you still have to work for me. This is natural. At this time, as long as we can get these medical supplies, let alone pay and work, we are willing to sacrifice our lives." Huajing told the truth that in addition to having a bunch of relatives, he also had 3 children at home, and all 3 children had poor physical constitutions. Today, everyone had difficulty breathing. It must be because the air is too humid. People don't realize the importance of medical supplies until they get sick. Hua Jing wanted to get medicine for his relatives and also wanted to prepare some medical supplies for his own family. Huami thought for a moment and said, "Okay then, you don't have to pick the fruit from the trees. I'll find someone to pick them. You can find a few more people to help me clear the way. Otherwise, it will be very inconvenient for others to go in and out every time to haul goods." Now Qichuan has become Huami's mineral water agent, and the mineral water business in the neighboring city has been contracted by Qichuan. Although Qichuan's sales of mineral water have been a little slower due to the continuous rain in the past few days, his business is still good, because the base of demand is huge. On average, Qichuan buys 200,000 bottles of mineral water from Huami every 2 days. Huami always put the mineral water in the underground garage next to Lianhua Xingxing, and Qichuan's friends could only carry the mineral water out by manpower. This is not a problem for Hanami, but it is a big problem for Akegawa's friends. The road that Huami wanted to take to Huajingxiu was to go all the way out from the underground garage and clear a double lane. This is a big project, and Huajing definitely cannot complete it alone. He needs to find some people to help. Huami is also very generous. Everyone who works for me will be paid a box of mineral water, 3 adult respirators, 3 children's respirators, a bottle of ethanol, a painkiller, a hemostatic gel, and a roll of sterile gauze every day. I will also provide you with raincoats for free. Make a deal. With such a good reward, Huajing had no reason not to agree. Not to mention other things, even a respirator is hard to find in Shangqing now. The ubiquitous thick water vapor has begun to hinder human breathing. Huami Kin provides them with these medical supplies every day, plus a box of mineral water and a raincoat. It is already a very generous reward. Huami turned on her phone and saw from the surveillance that Huajing had left her fruit trees. He called for help while running outside the ruins to wait for someone. So Huami quickly called up the control panel and collected the oranges, apples, and grapefruits from the fruit trees with one click. Obtained. Orange X523 obtained. Apple X871 obtained. Grapefruit X398. She took a walk around the RV, and when she returned to the bus, she was holding a bag of fresh oranges, a bag of juicy apples, and a bag of 4 large grapefruits. Defuku and Zayafuku. Wash these fruits and send some to the garrison standing guard in the surrounding areas. Huami put the fruits in the car and called the 2 children to do some work. She pursed her lips again, feeling that the car was too dry. Old Man Ku also said that the moisture content in the air was too high, but Huami really didn't notice it. With such dry air, you need to eat more fruits. After arranging the distribution of the fruits, Huami tried not to waste time and jumped into an off-road vehicle provided by the garrison. With off-food driving, the 2 of them left the city and headed towards the place where the medical supplies were piled up. Along the way, the mountains and rivers were broken. The trees were overturned. The rain was continuous, and the depressed people were unable to breathe. The one who couldn't breathe was someone else, not Huami and Afu, who were wearing respirators. Although they lived a busy and hectic life, everything was in order and they knew what they should do every day. But now, after today, no one knows what will happen tomorrow. Huami, who was sitting in the passenger seat, listened expressionlessly, feeling a little drowsy. She took out her cell phone and opened the chat box with Gong Yi out of boredom. Gong Yi, you didn't buy any meat? I don't know if it was telepathy, but a text message suddenly popped up in Gong Yi's chat box. Huami, no. Gong Yi, the rescue team and the garrison are not vegetarians. Huami had sent him a message before, saying that it was recommended that garrison and rescue teams eat vegetables 3 times a day. Because Huami accidentally bought a lot of vegetables, Gong Yi didn't ask exactly how many there were. If these vegetables are not eaten, they will be piled up in the garrison supply area, which not only takes up space but also easily spoils, wasting money. Gong Yi felt that what Huami said made sense and had no objection. So, tragedy happened. On day 1, shallots were fried with green onions, which the garrison and rescue teams ate for 3 days. On day 2, white radish and carrots were fried, the same as above. On day 3, shredded potatoes and lettuce slices were fried, the same as above. On day 4, they finally had a stew, cucumbers, and tomatoes. Day 5. Oh, I won't say more. It will only bring tears if I say too much. The entire garrison brigade, including the rescue team, now have green lights in their eyes when they see Ro Ding Ding. Pooh. Huami stared at Gong Yi's text message on her phone. A man who eats meat is not a good man. Despite the scolding, she still called the giant of the farmer's market to buy meat. A lot of meat. However, before the call was connected, Huami hurriedly shouted in the bumpy car, "Uncle Fu, stop the car." Fu, who was driving, was startled and slammed on the brakes. Before he could stop the car, Huami opened the door, jumped out of the car, pulled off the respirator, bent down, and started to retch into a pile of gravel. Seeing the search, Fu jumped out of the car worriedly. "Miss Hua, are you okay? Did you have a stomachache?" On the ruins, a lifeguard hurriedly ran over, stepping on the rubble. He stood at a distance and looked at it, then immediately lowered his head and pressed the pager on his shoulder. Boss, I saw Sister Hua. She seems to be feeling unwell." What a coincidence. There was only one smooth path out of the city, and Gong Yi happened to be searching for survivors on this path. Soon, a tall and majestic figure ran out from the ruins, ran through the continuous rain, and arrived behind Huami quickly and agilely. Huami was still vomiting. She was wearing a raincoat made of waterproof oilcloth, and her back looked as fragile as a wisp of duckweed in the strong wind. Gong Yi frowned, stretched out his hand, pressed on the back of Huami's shoulder, and was about to speak. Huami, who was hunched over in front, looked back. There was no trace of blood on his snow-white face, and his fox eyes had lost their usual lively look. She vomited so hard that tears came out. There is a layer of watery light in the slightly curved eyes, so fragile that it seems like it will fall down if the wind blows. What's going on? Gong Yi's brows were almost knotted, and he wanted to touch Huami's face with his blood-stained long fingers, but he was afraid of dirtying her. After a moment of hesitation, Fuku said, not quite understanding what he was saying, "Miss Hua has an upset stomach. Foods are most likely to get moldy and have a lot of bacteria on rainy days." It sounds like it makes sense. Gong Yi's brows were still furrowed as he looked at Huami in the rain, and he said worriedly, "Go find a doctor. You're too weak. Why are you running outside at this time? A stomach upset can be serious or minor. In the past, at most you would have vomiting and diarrhea for a few days. But in today's environment and world, we are afraid of major problems. Often after a major natural disaster, there will be widespread cholera, and this has been the case since ancient times." Huami waved her hand. "I still have things to do. I just did a business deal with Old Man Ku, and I have to go pick up the goods." As he spoke, he was about to get in the car, not wanting to waste any time. Seeing this, Fu looked at Gong Yi at a loss. At this time, making money is secondary, health is the most important. Although Huami's personality seems easy to talk to on the surface, in fact, she has a feeling that those who obey me will prosper, and those who disobey me will perish. Once she decides to do something, no one can stop her, including herself. So Fu didn't dare to stop her. She walked forward, and just as she reached for the handle of the bike, Gong Yi grabbed her from behind and carried her sideways in his arms and rushed straight to the temporary tent. "Gong Yi, let me go." Huami was angry. It was the first time in her life that a man had carried her around like a princess. She was so embarrassed. Gong Yi ignored her and ran forward quickly. He went straight into the resettlement tent and put her on a small stool in the tent. Seeing that she was about to stand up, Gong Yi put his hands on her thin shoulders to prevent her from getting up. He was very strong. Huami wanted to move, but she couldn't move at all. She looked up in surprise and looked at Gong Yi's handsome face covered by mud. He is very strong, definitely beyond that of an ordinary man." Gong Yi's resolute face, his eyes full of determination. "No matter what, you find someone to take a look first. I still have a lot of rocks to turn over. Don't let me worry." "Okay." The words were inquiries, but the tone was very strong. It was so strong that Huami felt a strong sense of worry coming over her. He cares about her very much. Huami raised her eyebrows slightly and looked carefully into Gong Yi's eyes. The pager on his shoulder rang, and the life detector found a living person nearby. Gong Yi turned and walked away, his whole body immersed in the drizzle. Then he paused, turned back, the rain hitting his resolute face. He looked at Huami and said, "The lifeguard will be here soon." Send me a message about what he says. As he spoke, he clenched his fist and hit his chest. It looked as if he wanted to hammer his heart out for Huami to see. Huami, who was sitting on a small stool, nodded involuntarily, watching Gongyi disappear into the drizzle and rush to a certain point with the scattered lifeguards nearby. Miss Hua. Afu trotted into the tent in a hurry. He looked at the environment inside the tent. It was obvious that this was a temporary tent that could not be more temporary. There were some mineral water, ethanol, respirators, a lot of lifeguard clothes, etc. in it. Because of the rain, the ground was covered with mud, and the boxes of mineral water were just placed in the mud. It looked much worse than the rescue center in the city. Afu sighed and asked, "Why don't we go back and ask Mr. Ku to get a proper doctor to take a look at it?" Huami withdrew her gaze from the direction where Gongyi disappeared. She shook her head. "I don't have time to go back and forth. Just show it to the lifeguard. Don't I understand my own body? It's okay. Go to the front and see what's going on, and send me a message." She had seen the environment along the way. This place was actually very far away from Shangqing and very close to the medical supplies storage area. Going further ahead, there were ruins again. Even off-road vehicles could not pass through, so she could only walk there. Afu responded. Although he was worried about Huami, there was a shortage of manpower at the moment. If he didn't go, no one else would go. Just as Afu left, a lifeguard rushed into the tent. He had a white cuff with a red cross on it on his arm and a simple medical kit in his hand. He asked, "Sister Hua, what's wrong with you?" "I'm not feeling unwell anywhere. I just keep vomiting lately." Huami told the truth and watched the young lifeguard open the medicine box, take out a bottle of scopolamine, and give her a pill. This is a medicine to stop stomach spasms. It will temporarily suppress the vomiting. If conditions permit, you should still see a professional doctor. The young man spoke sincerely. He was actually just a temporary member. After reading a few medical books, he was temporarily pulled into the rescue team by Gongyi and became a medical staff of the rescue team. Huami looked down at the small pill in her white and tender palm, then took out scopolamine from the young man's medicine box and looked at it. She inexplicably saw the words contraindicated for pregnant women and children. "I suddenly stopped vomiting. You don't have many medicines? You should leave them to those who need them more." On the ruins, Huami opened the photo sent by Afu, which showed a vast expanse of medical supplies that seemed to have no end, towering on the cargo beds of one trailer after another. All were tightly wrapped in white tarpaulin. I won't talk about all that. The key point is that the area blocked by hundreds of large trailers is in the shape of a concave U.S. letter V. There were ruins all around, and even if we wanted to drive the car out, it was impossible. Afu then sent another video to Huami. In the video, there was a group of survivors who came from nowhere and were stealing medical supplies. They cut open the tarpaulin of a trailer and took out boxes of tightly wrapped medicines. They opened the foam medicine boxes in the rain and began to rummage through the medicine boxes on the spot. Some unwanted medicines were thrown on the ground hastily and casually by them, and a large area of unknown pills were scattered. Huami felt very distressed when seeing this. The drivers of these trailers had long since disappeared. Maybe they feel that it is hopeless to get out of this pit, so they all go about doing their own thing, just like Afu did back then. Huami was wearing a raincoat and trudging through the ruins. She took out her cell phone and prepared to call Huijing. Judging from the photos sent by Afu, her Level 7 warehouse definitely cannot accommodate so many medical supplies. The Level 7 warehouse was almost full with the vegetables and her express deliveries. If we want to absorb so many medical supplies, the storage will definitely need to be upgraded, but the supporting facilities are a limitation. We are worried that due to limitations in supporting facilities, we won't be able to collect all of these medical supplies. So Huami wanted Huijing to build her some protective infrastructure. It just happened that I took out my phone. Turn on security scan. Completion of Security and Defense Works Defense Engineering Rating. Completed the goat trail, obtained 4 square meters of blackland. Please select a location for the blackland. Huijing repaired the road? So fast? Can building a road be considered a defense project? What can a road defend? If you are besieged by zombies, can you drive back to the supermarket quickly on this narrow path? Well, Huami thought about it this way, and this path could be considered a safety defense project. She is such a logical genius. She can make her own arguments so well. Great. Just as she was applauding herself and voting for it 3 times in her heart, she received a call from Huajing. Miss Hua, I have something to tell you. We have repaired the road for you, but there is a problem. There are too many people here. Huajing, as everyone knows, is a good person. But there were too many relatives in the family, and they were just building a small road, so he just called out and a large group of people came. Not many, about 200 or 300. Because something had happened, he specially called Huami to explain. Actually, he had only planned to call his own relatives. But he had a relative who was a contractor before the earthquake, and he was surprised to hear that there were still projects to be done now. The reward is that Huami will give each person so much medical supplies every day. This is a great thing. Without informing Huajing immediately, he called all the migrant workers under his command over. It's easier to get things done with more people. The concept of a few people building a road in dozens of days and hundreds of people building a road in a few days is absolutely different. Huajing didn't think it was a big deal, so he just repaired it. More people means more work, right? Then the narrow path was repaired at the fastest speed. As a result, Huajing made a big mistake. After the migrant workers finished building the road, they were reluctant to leave. There are too many people and too little meat, and they feel that the money they earn is not enough to just make 2 days of medical supplies. They still want to work for Huami and continue to earn money from medical supplies. Halfway through the call, in the dense and fine rain, before Huami could say anything, the contractor relative on the other end of the line snatched the phone from Huajing. The relative on the other end of the phone, wearing a dirty helmet, bowed and nodded to Huami. Miss Hua, please help us. Although we have more people, we can work quickly. These migrant workers have no choice but to stock up some medical supplies for their families. What do you want us to do? We can do it. Otherwise, we can build a forbidden city for you. The shortage of medical supplies has caused panic among the people, which cannot be simply summarized in a few words. Although no one was seriously injured, there was no need to use sterile gauze. But when everyone knows that supplies are in short supply, they can't help but try their best to stock up some for their own families. It's better to be prepared than not. Huami expressed her understanding. What she didn't understand was, what could she do with a forbidden city? After thinking about it, Huami said to Huajing's relatives, the forbidden city is not good enough. You should build me a bunker, a bigger one, built according to the specifications of the community, with higher walls, the kind that can withstand cannon fire. Since you're going to help me with the work, then do it well. You won't suffer any loss. When you're done, you can go to the garrison supplies department at the city's rescue center to settle the bill. The garrison will settle the bill for you. It will take a few days for me to go back. She explained in detail that before leaving, she moved tens of thousands of medical supplies to the garrison material department. It's enough for a few days temporarily. In fact, this engineering team is not very good at dealing with trouble. A team of several hundred people ran out of Xiangxing and attacked the medical supplies storage area in front. Isn't that a good idea? But professionals do professional things. Since the construction team is relying on her, she won't say anything more. So if Huami wants to build a bunker, then his requirements are naturally high. It is no exaggeration to say that the wall is capable of withstanding cannon fire. After all, in the late apocalypse, plants and animals mutated. Some strange things popped up, and the power created casually was comparable to a cannon attack. Well, you're a good man. Hawking's relative, a contractor, happily agreed. After hanging up the phone, he turned around and shouted to the group of migrant workers behind him. It's done. There's work to do. Miss Hua wants to build a bunker. Let's make it solid and strong enough to withstand cannon fire. Come on, everyone. This is a big project, and it will take a very long time. If they do a good job, with Huami's background, maybe they can find more work for them. The engineering team burst into cheers. Everyone carried their own professional tools and worked hard to clear the rubble near the Lotus Shengxing supermarket in the rainy ruins. At this time, Huami finished her call. She looked around and found that she had arrived at the medical supplies storage area. Just then I saw a group of survivors who were stealing medical supplies, surrounding and beating off Fu. In the video sent by Afu, there was a group of people stealing medical supplies in the depression where the medical supplies were stored. Looking at their process, some people are responsible for cutting the waterproof tarpaulin with a knife, Some are responsible for carrying the medical supply boxes, some are responsible for identifying the medicines, and some are responsible for transporting them out of the depression. The division of labor is clear, and he is a habitual offender. After they found Afu, a group of people surrounded him and beat him up without saying anything. A fight to the death. To be honest, if the other party hadn't been so suicidal in beating Afu, Huami wouldn't have been so excited. I am excited because my fighting spirit has been provoked. Huami rushed forward with a steel bar in his hand and smashed the heads of the group of men in front of him indiscriminately. Every hit he made hit them all the way down. The rain was pouring down, and the ground had turned into mud. Mixed with the blood from the foreheads of these habitual criminals, the mud was dyed reddish-brown. The people who were besieging Afu finally realized something was wrong and immediately dispersed. Someone pointed at Huami, who was wearing a raincoat and holding a steel bar dripping with blood, and yelled, "What do you do? Are you a woman? Where can I find such a beautiful and cruel woman?" Huami was wearing a hooded raincoat. A strand of hair on her temple was exposed from the hood and was wet from the drizzle. Her face was a beautiful cold white in the coldness, but because of the fight, her lips were bright red. Her eyes were full of spirit, and the corners of her eyes showed a special charm. Speaking of which, there are so many supply trucks here. Where are the drivers? She asked a completely unrelated question. This was quite strange to Huami, because at this time, order was still there, and even if the trailers transporting medical supplies could not move, the drivers would not be able to leave here collectively. When she saw the photos sent by Afu just now, she felt that this place was unusually deserted. After arriving here, Huami felt the situation was even more weird because there was no one here. Even if the driver ran away, there was no one guarding the place? Has the management system become so chaotic? It was a waste of her time, an effort to find Kuming Hong to get the formalities and documents for her. If she had known that there was no one managing this place, she would have come directly here. Among the habitual offenders, a man laughed. It was obvious that he did not feel any threat from Huami, even if he knocked out a few of their companions. So what? It was just a sneak attack from behind, and Huami just happened to be knocked out, dead. A habitual criminal pointed to several pairs of feet lying on the ground between the trailers and smiled with some complacency. There are hundreds of trailers, and not all drivers will leave. There are still a few left to act as managers. It's easy to deal with them, just kill them. Oh, Huami's confusion was resolved, and she no longer hesitated. The murderous intent in her eyes made her look a little crazy. Another man came up to her with a lewd look on his face and asked her, "Who are you? Sent by the management system? Then you have come to the right place. There is nothing here except a group of grown men like us." Everyone laughed, and someone started teasing Huami. "You just knocked out a few of us. Shouldn't you give us some compensation? Pay with your body, ha 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 ha." She was surrounded. Huami nodded. She was not unfamiliar with this kind of scene. "Don't ask who I am. At a time like this, men and women, if I can beat you to death, I'm a good person." As she moved, the steel bar in her hand splashed with blood. Her long boots stepped on the mud, and she rushed towards the remaining dozen or so habitual criminals. This time it wasn't a fight. This time it was a murder. A particularly beautiful and clean murder. Anyway, there is no surveillance, no garrison, and no order here. She likes this environment very much. Soon, the recidivists fell to the ground. It took only a few minutes. The remaining few habitual criminals finally came to their senses from Huami's beautiful kill. What kind of affair was this? This is simply like encountering a female Rakshasa. The surviving men quickly ran to the depression. The rain made the muddy ground slippery. Someone was running and looking back in horror, only to see Huami chasing him like a female demon. She threw a steel bar and knocked a man down. I don't know whether to live or die, and I don't care whether to live or die. It was the last man's turn. She stepped on the man's chest with her boots, held the steel bar in her hand against the man's head, and asked, "Tell me, why did you hit my people?" After she had beaten and killed all of them, she finally asked. The man on the ground spoke in a stammering voice. "We were wrong. We were wrong. We just wanted to make a little fortune. Please don't kill me." Just as Huami had expected, they were a theft organization that had been roaming around various cities for a long time. He is ruthless and has no bottom line. In order to make money, one can even take someone's life. Recently, they saw a post online about the Shangqing garrison reselling medical supplies at sky-high prices. So they keenly smelled the business opportunity. Medical supplies from all walks of life are being sent to Shangqing, but the prices of medical supplies in Shangqing are still sky-high. This means that the medical supplies were stuck halfway and could not be transported into Shangqing. So they searched for several days and finally found the location where the medical supplies were stuck. Today is the first time they have stolen medical supplies. As long as they resell the medical supplies to Shangqing, it will be a sure win business. As a result, in such a remote place, after killing the guard, another Ah Fu appeared. When they found Ah Fu, he was holding a mobile phone in his hand and recording a video of them. This is forcing them to kill and silence them. After Huami listened to the man's narration, she took the steel bar and knocked on the man's head, as if she was thinking about where to open his head. You know what? The world is getting worse and worse. If there is one less piece of trash, many more lives can be saved in the future. As the cold words fell, Huami threw a steel bar down, and the man on the ground tilted his head. He bid farewell to this world. Huami was too lazy to take another look and just turned around to look for Ah Fu. Among a large number of men lying on the ground, Ah Fu was crawling in the mud, also not knowing whether he was alive or dead. Huami lifted Ah Fu by the back of his collar, pulled his face out of the mud, and stretched out her finger to check his breath. Fortunately, I'm alive. There are so many medical supplies here that Huami's warehouse has been full. Even after it reached level 10, the medical supplies have not been collected yet, with only half left. In the huge open space, Huami could no longer collect supplies because the supporting facilities were incomplete. Because her storage upgraded too quickly, but the factory was only level 7, the black soil was only upgraded to level 4, and the newly added 4 square meters of black soil had not yet been selected by Huami. She opened the supermarket panel and upgraded the factory. Level 8 factory, mineral water bottles, all specifications, mineral water, all specifications, waterproof tarpaulin, specifications 2x1. 5M, self-priming filter type antiparticle respirator, specifications, children, self-priming filter type antiparticle respirator, specifications, adults, limited production, ethanol X 50,000, painkiller X 40,000, sterile gauze X 30,000, hemostatic gel X 20,000, goggles X 10,000. Level 8 factories can produce more things. Mineral water bottles and mineral water with complete specifications are compressed to the lower level page, and respirators are no longer limited. And in the limited production category, it is no longer medical supplies, but goggles. What can this goggles do? Huami produced goggles X10 while walking towards the trailer where Ah Fu was lying. She just wanted to try out what these goggles could do. Soon, in less than half a second, Huami got the goggles produced by the level 8 factory. A very beautiful pair of goggles, cyberpunk style, very technological, and will emit 7 colors of light when held in the hand. There are also 3 flash modes: fast flash, uniform flash, and slow flash. Huami put on the goggles and instantly felt the vision ahead became clear. Looking ahead, she could see far away in the rain. The key is that raindrops will never drift into your eyes again. Just like diving goggles, the frame fits the eye contour perfectly without squeezing the eye sockets and nose bridge. It's the same whether you wear it or not. And no matter how you run or jump, it won't fall off. This thing is good. When you fight, it will prevent your opponent's blood from spurting into his eyes. There's nothing wrong with it except that it's a bit fancy. Huami immediately produced the goggles X9990. At the same time, she walked back to the trailer where Ah Fu was lying. The warehouse cannot be upgraded any further, even though the factory has been upgraded to level 8. However, the level of the black soil is too low and has only been upgraded to level 4. So Huami planned to take Ah Fu back to Shangqing first, sell some of the medical supplies in hand, clear out some things in the level 10 warehouse, and then come back to collect the remaining half of the medical supplies. I just wonder if she can do it instantly with the others? As soon as this thought came to mind, Huami and Ah Fu disappeared from the spot. She took Ah Fu Shun back to the Lotus Shengxing supermarket. Not long after the 2 men left, 2 administrators in suits and ties, looking disheveled, crawled out from the other end of the ruins. They also knew that the supplies were stuck here based on the descriptions of the drivers who had left. As a result, after a long and arduous trek, they found that half of the medical supplies were gone and there were several corpses on the ground. Oh my God! It was a huge accident. The two administrators were breathing rapidly and crawling away from the scene. They took out their cell phones and called the Shangqing Management Headquarters. Hello, Commander-in-Chief. It's bad. Something big has happened. Many people have died here, and half of the medical supplies are missing. No. Half of them have mysteriously disappeared. The two of them described it incoherently and couldn't make themselves understood. It means that there was a fight here, and some medical supplies were missing. The other end hesitated for a moment and hung up the phone. This incident quickly spread throughout the management level of Shangqing. Then, soon, another call came to Qin Ziren's cell phone. When Qin Ziren saw the incoming call, he pushed Fong Xian, who was sitting on his lap, away, walked to the window with a serious face, and answered the phone. A very authoritative voice came from the other end of the phone. I have already reported the problem you reported about Gong Yi, but it will be troublesome to take action against Gong Yi, and now is not a good time. Last time you said you wanted to move up. I have a great opportunity for you. Half of the medical supplies stored outside Shangqing have been taken away by someone. If you can find a way to get the remaining half back to Shangqing, I can use this opportunity to promote you. Hearing this, Qin Ziren, who was soaked all over and whose clothes were almost moldy, finally smiled with relief. He suggested with a smile, I think the garrisons at the rescue center have nothing to do. They are a good source of labor. Why don't you give them your command so that I can transport the remaining half of the medical supplies back as soon as possible? He had told Kaminghong this a long time ago, but no one knew what Kaminghong was doing in secret these past few days. No one even bothers him anymore. Since Kaminghong's side didn't work, Qin Ziren used the power from above to mobilize the garrison. He was like a possessed man, and now all he wanted was to take control of the garrison and get Huami back. It seemed that only by taking control of the garrison and recovering Huami could he prove that he was no worse than Gong Yi. Moreover, Qin Ziren also saw clearly that at a time like this, he had to have garrison on hand. As long as he has the garrison in hand, he won't have to worry no matter how the situation changes in the future. The person on the other end of the phone seemed to be weighing the pros and cons. You still have to negotiate this matter with the garrison. I'm going to tell you some news that you may not like to hear. Gong Yi has been promoted to the Shangqing Garrison Command. If you want to transfer the garrison now, you have to negotiate with him. This news was like a bolt of lightning from the sky, striking Qin Ziren directly, knocking him down from the clouds to the ground. He had just been expected to be promoted, but Gong Yi was promoted even faster than him. Gong Yi is simply Qin Ziren's natural enemy. He held the phone in his hand and repeatedly assured his superiors that the medical supplies would be delivered back to Shangqing. Then he waited until the other party hung up before he dared to take the phone away from his ear. Then he looked at the rain outside the window with gloomy eyes. The annoying drizzle made it impossible for him to see the scenery in the distance. He became extremely gloomy due to the thick water vapor surrounding him. Qin Ziren was very annoyed. He raised his hand and smoothed his greasy and wet hair. After thinking for a long time, he called Gong Yi. A little lack of patience will ruin great plans. Only those who can bend and stretch can be true men. After the call was connected, Qin Ziren told Gong Yi that he was going to mobilize the Shangqing garrison to transport medical supplies out of the city. He thought his tone of voice was pretty good. When facing small trash, Gong Yi's attitude has always been simple and rough. What's more, this little trash Qin Ziren has a poor sense of the overall situation and is too selfish. After scolding Qin Ziren, Gong Yi hung up the phone. There is no time. Gong Yi really doesn't have time to talk nonsense with Qin Ziren. In the drizzle, he placed the survivor he had just dug out on his back onto a stretcher, turned around, and ran into the ruins while looking at the dialogue box between Huami and him on the screen of his mobile phone. Gong Yi? He only had time to ask this question before going back to turning over the stone. When Qin Ziren called Gong Yi again, he couldn't get through to Gong Yi. Qin Ziren, who was wearing a suit and was soaked all over, was shaking with anger. I just can't understand why Huami would get involved with a rude and impolite man like Gong Yi. Brother Ziren. Fong Xian came over, speaking in a coquettish voice. wanting to continue what she had just been doing. Qin Ziren was getting annoyed and pushed her away, looking very disgusted. "You are so sticky. Don't you feel disgusted? Are you so needy?" These words made Fong Xian feel as if she had been slapped in the face, and her face turned red and white. This is so embarrassing. Isn't she sticking to Qin Ziren just to please him? Moreover, he had never disliked her like this before. When they were not open to the public and were doing it secretly, Qin Ziren was addicted to it and wanted it every other day. Now that the two of them have made their relationship public, Qin Ziren has lost interest. Why is he like this? Fong Xian held back tears and looked at Qin Ziren with a wronged look on her face. "Brother Ziren, what's wrong with you? You were not like this before." Seeing her like this, the former Qin Ziren would feel that she was pitiful and had sympathy for her, but now Qin Ziren just felt annoyed. At a time like this, what he needed was not tears, but someone by his side who could give him advice on how to mobilize the garrison in Xiangqing and transport medical supplies from outside the city. Fong Xian ran away crying, and Qin Ziren did not chase her. Anyway, even if he didn't coax her, a woman like Fong Xian would come back in the end. After all, Xiangqing was in such a mess. Who could a woman like Fong Xian rely on? Even if Fong Xian really didn't come back, Qin Ziren didn't care. Yes, Fong Xian has such a benefit. He called Daifeng. Last time, Qin Ziren asked Daifeng to help him persuade Huami to come back, but Daifeng has been staying near the RV supermarket in the rescue center for the past 2 days and has not seen Huami. When Qin Ziren called her, she was holding an umbrella, trying to look at the RV in the rain, and said to Qin Ziren, "I'm sorry, Mr. Qin, she hasn't come back yet, and I don't know where she went. In fact, it would be best if she didn't show up." Daifeng hated Huami very much and didn't want to have any contact with Huami at all at this time. Of course, this cannot be said to Qin Ziren. Qin Ziren responded on the other end of the phone, but he didn't hang up in a hurry. Instead, he asked, "I heard that Ami's RV supermarket sells medicine? Are those medicines taken from the garrison?" This is the only explanation. Otherwise, where did Huami, a weak woman, get so many medical supplies? Daifeng answered with certainty, "That must be the case, Mr. Qin. In fact, I have also observed these past few days that the garrisons are very protective of her RV supermarket. She has a special relationship with the garrisons." Daifeng also knew what was so special about it. She told Qin Ziren everything she saw outside the emergency room that day about the intimate interaction between Gong Yi and Huami, and hurriedly advised, "Mr. Qin, Xin has actually told me many times that she has unusual relationships with several men. Okay, just do what you were supposed to do. If you find that Ami is back, tell me immediately." Qin Ziren interrupted Daifeng. He didn't need Daifeng to repeat how fickle Huami was. At this point, he didn't seem to care that much about Huami's scandals. He only needed to understand one thing. Those stationed at the rescue center listened to Huami. It was drizzling outside the window, and the sun seemed to have not come out for a long time. Huami looked at Afu, who was still unconscious on the ground on the first floor of the supermarket, and wondered how to send Afu back to the rescue center. There were voices outside, and after a while, Hu Jing, wearing a yellow safety helmet, walked into the supermarket with 2 migrant workers. Hu Jing worked for Huami. In addition to receiving a box of mineral water as wages every day, Huami also put a shelf of mineral water in Lianhua Xingxing supermarket. This was provided to Hu Jing for free. A tacit rule has been formed between Huami and Hu Jing. So now, if any migrant workers on the construction site are thirsty, they can just go to the supermarket and get some water. As soon as Hu Jing and the other 2 pushed open the door of the supermarket, they were frightened by seeing Afu lying on the ground covered in blood. I saw Huami again wearing a wet raincoat and a pair of punk goggles that emitted colorful light on her face. She looked like she had just come back from a nightclub, fashionable and full of individuality. She was holding a bottle of ethanol and bent over to pour it on the wound on Afu's face. Hearing 3 gasps, Huami raised her head, and a colorful light blinded Hu Jing and the other 2. "You've come just in time. Now that the road is cleared, please help me take Afu to the rescue center." She could take Afu Shun back to the RV of the rescue center. But what should I say when I get there? There are people everywhere watching me. Just say, "Hey, what a coincidence. Afu and I slept under the RV." Then Ah Fu was dragged out from under the RV with blood all over his body. When Huami thought of that scene, she couldn't help but shudder. Hu Jing and the other two sitting opposite her rubbed their eyes and felt that the colorful lights were jumping everywhere in the dark environment, which seriously affected their vision. They said yes repeatedly. The two migrant workers immediately stepped forward, lifted Ah Fu up, and quickly ran out of the supermarket with their eyes half closed. If they don't go out, their eyes will be blinded by Miss Hua's colorful light. Hu Jing also closed his eyes and hurriedly fetched water based on his memory. Just as he was about to start repairing the bunker, he was stopped by Huami. With a dazzling gaze, she said to Hu Jing, "There's something I need you to do. Find a few people to help me fix the area around the rescue center's RV. Build a wall." She thought about it. She flashed in and out every day. Every time she did so, she would pretend to crawl into the RV to sleep and crawl out from under the RV the next day. After one or two times, the garrisons around her would say that her reconnaissance ability was not good and that she did not notice. But as time goes by, it's hard to say. There will always be people who are suspicious. In the dark supermarket, Huami spoke as Hu Jing closed his eyes and nodded involuntarily to the rhythm of the flashing, colorful lights. Yes, 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 good, good. Show off, blind, blind, blind. There was a sound in my head. The boundless horizon is my love. What kind of rhythm is the most swinging? The most swinging? Huami felt strange when she saw it and asked, "What are you immersed in with your eyes closed?" She was wearing goggles from a level 8 factory and had no idea how lethal her own colorful light was. Moreover, he could clearly see the expression on Hu Jing's face. Hu Jing was stunned. Rubbing his eyes awkwardly, "I've been doing hard labor in the rain recently, so my eyesight isn't very good." Bad eyesight? Huami looked at the drizzling rain outside the door with consideration and said with understanding, "This rain is really annoying. It flies into your eyes and affects your work. I have some magical goggles. I'll sell 300 of them to your engineering team for 2,000 yuan each. Do you want them?" This. Hu Jing closed his eyes, his mind filled with the extremely lethal, colorful light on Huami's face. He felt that if he didn't leave, his eyes might not be saved. "Yes, yes, yes, Miss Hua, please give me 300 of them." Now he and his relative's engineering team are relying on Huami to stockpile medical supplies and water. Apart from anything else, it is said that the air quality is getting worse and worse. If you don't wear a respirator, you will have breathing difficulties if you move a little. The respirators here in Huami are supplied free of charge and in unlimited quantities, just like water. That is to say, when they are working on the construction site, they can get free drinking water and free respirators from Huami's supermarket. This is not included in the salary. How could Hu Jing possibly offend such a good backer? Even if Huami wanted to sell him a pair of goggles for 2,000 yuan, Hu Jing would buy it even if it was 20,000 yuan. Just think of it as giving money to please Huami. Seeing Hu Jing's impatience, Huami quickly took out 300 goggles and gave them to him. Hu Jing hurriedly put one on and scanned the code for Huami to pay. Because Hu Jing bought the goggles just to please Huami, he didn't have high expectations for them. But the moment he put it on, Hu Jing felt his eyes comfortable, wow, like they were being massaged. He had never felt his vision so clear before, and all the scenery in front of him was quite clear. You know, it has been raining for many days without any sign of clearing up. The scenery deep in the rain seems to be covered with a thick gray veil, and you can't see it clearly at all. That's not all. They are working outside, and if they can't see the road clearly, accidents are very likely to happen. But now with this pair of goggles, although it is a bit dazzling, it greatly facilitates their construction. Hu Jing hurriedly hugged a bunch of goggles and ran out of the supermarket to find his relative who was a contractor. Outside, the weather was gloomy and the contractor in a raincoat was arranging workers to clear the rubble. All they saw was a ball emitting colorful light rolling towards them in the gray mist. The contractor opened his mouth wide and the walkie-talkie in his hand was shaking slightly. A migrant worker beside him shouted, "Hey, is that the Monkey King coming up here on a colorful cloud?" Before he could finish his words, the contractor with gold teeth slapped him on the back of his head. "Are you stupid? You've watched too many movies. Where did the Monkey King come from? It's clearly aliens coming to attack the Earth." A group of migrant workers wearing waterproof oilcloth raincoats provided free of charge by Huami stood in the drizzle, staring with wide eyes at the colorful light in the distance, getting closer and closer. I bought 300 goggles. Everyone put them on quickly. Hua Jing's voice came from the jumping, blindingly colorful light. When everyone looked closely, they saw that Hua Jing was holding a bunch of randomly flashing goggles in his arms. Because there were too many of them and they were too bright, from a distance they looked like a ball of colorful light. The contractor wanted to hit the boy with a brick. What was he doing? He was so old, but he was still playing with such children's toys. Then Hua Jing said, "This is what Miss Hua bought for me. It's quite comfortable to wear and allows me to see things clearly in the rain." When he heard that it was Huami who sold it to Hua Jing, the contractor immediately picked up a pair of goggles and put them on. His attitude changed 360 degrees. "Come on, Miss Hua, do you have this toy anymore? Let's go buy a few more. This is a rare opportunity to please Miss Hua." In this environment, what does money mean? As long as they can hold on to Miss Hua as their backer, they will benefit in the future. The migrant workers around were originally not interested in this fancy thing, but when they heard that it was Huami who sold it to them, they took the initiative to walk over, fumbled to take a pair of goggles from Hua Jing's arms and put them on. There is no need to describe the feeling after putting on the goggles. The vision is as clear as possible and the comfort is as comfortable as possible. So much so that they didn't want to take it off. Then, the entire wasteland of broken walls and ruins was flashing with colorful lights everywhere. It looks like a big, weird amusement park. The contractor dragged Hua Jing with a flattering look on his face and ran back to the supermarket to find Huami. But what he saw was an empty supermarket. He turned around and looked at Hua Jing. "Where is Miss Hua? I don't know where it went." Hua Jing also felt very strange. "Where is Miss Hua? She was in the supermarket just now. How come she disappeared all of a sudden?" They also need to buy goggles. At this time, Huami was looking at her orange trees, grapefruit trees and apple trees at the back of the supermarket. Ever since Hua Jing discovered the fruit trees here last time, Huami told Hua Jing that this area should not be touched for the time being. Everyone just needs to gather around the supermarket and work from a distance. Huami plans to set aside a large blank area behind the supermarket for planting. Looking back now, it's a good thing that she had foresight, because the fruit trees that had just harvested a batch of fruits 2 days ago are now full of fruits again. It seems that the straw matures once a day, while the fruit trees mature once every 2 or 3 days. Huami called up the control panel of Apocalypse Supermarket and harvested fruits with one click. Hua Jing had previously cleared a large area in this area, which was more than enough to accommodate her 4 square meters of black soil. After arranging the 4 square meters of black soil, Huami began to look for seeds in the level 10 storage. Because crops on black soil grow very quickly, Huami didn't think too much about it and just took out some cherry, pomegranate, kiwi, and cantaloupe seeds and scattered them on the 4 square meters of black soil. After she harvested the straw, she remembered that she still had 16 chances to draw the lottery. This time she upgraded the black soil, 3 warehouses and 1 factory, giving her 5 more chances to draw the lottery. Huami clenched her hands, put them to her lips and blew a breath. Then, like a serious gambler, she clicked several times in a row. Draw X1. Get the growth rate of matte grass X8. Time limit. 24 hours. Get the growth rate of matte grass X8. Time limit. 48 hours. Obtain orange tree growth speed X8. Time limit. 24 hours. Get baby diapers. Specification: NB size. X 100,000 bags. Get 10,000 bottles of folic acid. Get 100,000 boxes of condoms. Obtain cement. X 5,000 T. Get 100,000 boxes of Qingxin Mingmu tea. A long list of tips appeared, and Huami was confused. What were these? She really didn't have the luck to win the grand prize. It was fine to speed up the growth of grass and orange trees, but what about baby diapers and folic acid? And condoms? What was the point of her having 100,000 boxes of condoms? The key is that these garbage can no longer be stuffed into the level 11 storage. Once pulled out, they will all be scattered around Huami. Oh my god. Huami didn't dare to click on the remaining lottery X8, for fear that she would draw something shocking and there would be no place to put it. She looked at the neatly stacked bags of cement, which looked like a wall surrounding her, and a pile of condoms, folic acid, diapers, and Qingxin Mingmu tea. After finally swimming out of the pile of garbage, Huami sat on a mountain of condoms, took out her phone with a smile on her face and called Kaming Hong, Uncle Ku. I'm having a promotion here recently. Hee hee. Yes, if you buy my medical supplies, plus 9.9 yuan, you can get a box of condoms. Hello? Hello? That old man Kaming Hong actually dared to hang up on her. Huami was very angry, and just then she saw a red exclamation mark appear on the back of the head of Gong Yi, that showy woman. She called up Gong Yi's dialogue box again. She saw Gong Yi sent her a question mark. Several hours have passed since this question mark appeared. Huami, what are you doing? Gong Yi, what's the result? Huami, what is the result? Gong Yi, vomiting. He was still thinking about this matter. It was rare that this big boss was so busy and still remembered that Huami had stomach discomfort. Huami, it's just a stomach cramp, nothing serious. Huami paused, her fingertips tapping on the phone screen. She wanted to sell condoms to Gong Yi, just like every time she sold him something before. But I don't know why, Huami feels a little shy. She could sell this thing to Kaming Hong without any scruples, but she couldn't sell it to Gong Yi. Finally, Huami sold her goggles and folic acid to Gong Yi. Gong Yi, folic acid? Huami, this is a good thing. It is a vitamin supplement for men. It is recommended that every garrison and lifeguard should eat it. In order to sell these junk, Huami has resorted to all means. Anyway, men can also take folic acid. You know, if men lack folic acid in their bodies, it will affect the quality of tadpoles. But Huami would not say it so directly. Gong Yi, then give us 2 bottles each. Huami, how can 2 bottles be enough? Boss, 200 bottles per person. You need to eat 3 times a day. You work so hard. You need to get more nutrition. While typing, Huami looked at Gong Yi's showy head portrait on the back as if she was looking at a great enemy. Then, Gong Yi stopped replying to her messages. He would often chat with her and then not reply to her messages, and Huami had become accustomed to it. So silence equals consent, right? She happily put X 5,000 goggles and X 99.99 bottles of folic acid into the garrison supplies department, and she kept the remaining bottle for herself. Anyway, taking a few folic acid pills a day won't do her any harm. It's just a vitamin supplement. After finishing the sale of folic acid, Huami turned around and walked to the front of the supermarket, just in time to see Hu Jing and the contractor looking for her. Hi, Huami greeted the two of them with a smile, and 2 more gods of wealth came. The big enemy. The contractor came over with a flattering look on his face. Miss Hua, I heard you have a lot of goggles. I want to buy some. Oh, I don't have goggles, but I have 100,000 boxes of condoms and I can't sell them for the time being. It's so frustrating. As she spoke, Huami looked at the contractor. The smile on the contractor's face froze, but he was a man who could accomplish great things, so he would continue to do this to please others, no matter how embarrassing it was. Then the contractor laughed with a slick look on his face. What a coincidence, Miss Hua. Look at the world nowadays. We should have fewer children and exercise more. I was just talking to Hu Jing, asking him and me to take it easy when we get home. Otherwise our wives' bellies will get too big and we won't be able to find a doctor to deliver the baby. Ha 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 ha, what a coincidence. He showed an expression that said, you understand. I understand, and everyone understands, looked at Hua Mixiao, and then winked at Hu Jing. Hu Jing was more honest than him. He looked at the contractor with a question mark on his face. When had they ever talked about this? But Hu Jing's doubts were not important. What was important was that the flattery today had to be successful. So, before Hu Jing could react, Huami, the contractor, and Hu Jing reached a deal. Hu Jing and his relatives each bought 10,000 boxes of condoms and took them home. Just look at this, 20,000 boxes of condoms have been sold. Everybody is happy. Everybody is happy. When he was paying, Hu Jing still had a question mark on his face. No, he bought so many condoms and brought them home. Will he be able to use them all in his lifetime? But looking at the happy relatives, Hu Jing fell silent again. At this time, money is nothing. What matters most is getting more medical supplies. The contractor and Hu Jing drove a truck to transport the condoms. Taking advantage of this time, Huami was tinkering in the supermarket. She first put 1 million bottles of mineral water in the level 10 warehouse into the underground garage next to it. This is left for Akegawa's friends to drag. After clearing out some things, Huami's level 10 warehouse had a little more space, so she could use the supplies she won from the lottery in the backyard. Hua Cai returned to the backyard of the supermarket, put folic acid X9999 into the level 10 storage, and moved it to the front of the supermarket, while waiting for someone from the garrison to come and take it. As a result, I found that the mat straw could be harvested. At this time, the wildly growing straw takes up quite a bit of space. Hua collected the straw mats in one go, piled them outside, and asked the garrison to deliver them to Yirong. She thought that since Afu was injured now, Yirong might not have the time to weave straw mats, so she didn't tell the garrison anything. It's up to Yirong to decide whether to write it or not. They went back and forth like this, from the backyard to the supermarket entrance several times, and finally, without attracting any attention, Hu Jing and his relatives dragged away 20,000 boxes of condoms. On the newly built narrow path, trucks carrying goods came and went. They had not stopped since Hua returned to the supermarket. When Hua put 100,000 bags of baby diapers, specifications, NB size, and 100,000 boxes of Qingxin Mingmu tea from the backyard into the level 10 warehouse, she found that the oranges could be harvested again. Get Mad X1 Get Orange X1337. Have you noticed that as these fruit trees are harvested more and more often, the amount of fruit increases? It is most likely because the fruit trees are growing bigger and bigger. Since Hua was a wood-type mutant in her previous life, she has a lot of experience in plant growth. As long as the supernatural power is strong enough, the plants will continue to thrive and grow stronger and stronger. So as the fruit trees grow bigger, they will naturally produce more and more fruits. If this continues, Hua feels that it is very likely that his teeth will sour when he eats fruit. She shook her head and decided not to teleport. She just rode her flatbed truck, pulling a cart full of oranges, grapefruits, and apples, as if she was taking a walk, preparing to ride all the way back to the rescue center from the supermarket. Passing by the contractor who was clearing the rubble, Hua took the opportunity to explain, "I have a batch of cement that has just been delivered and is placed in front of my supermarket. You can use my cement to build the fence." After giving the instructions, Hua put down several large sacks of oranges for the engineering team to eat and rode away on the truck. The contractor, with a mouthful of gold teeth and wearing colorful goggles, stood among several large sacks of oranges. He was confused. When did the cement truck come? When did it unload the cement? Forget it. The construction period is tight and Miss Hua's requirements are high, so he should just hurry up and distribute the oranges, and then ask the workers to move the cement. At this time, in the rescue center, Fong Xin searched around the rescue center and finally found Daifeng outside the RV in the square. It is said that Fong Xin is quite artistic in his way of speaking. She wiped her tears and complained to Daifeng. "Fong, Brother Xiren still can't forget me. He has done that to me. Why does I still cling to him?" Then, Fong Xin glanced at Daifeng in the drizzle and continued crying. "Brother Xiren asked you to monitor my sister because he wanted her to return to him. I don't want to live anymore. I can't live without Brother Xiren, Fong." The redness and swelling on Daifeng's face had not yet subsided. After hearing this, she stamped her feet anxiously. "Xin, why do you love your brother Xiren so much? You can't do this. You will be in great pain." Because of Gong Yi's obstruction, Mr. Qin's first order after taking office could no longer be carried out. Gong Yi is such a villain that he even asked the grassroots administrators under Mr. Qin to actually set up tents and transfer the wounded. As a result, Mr. Qin was left without a single useful person. Daifeng had no choice but to stand in the rain and monitor Hua Mi's RV. Daifeng was really fed up. "But Brother Xiren only loves my sister. I am so miserable." Fong Xin cried and shook her head. She looked like the heroine in a certain Aunt Yao movie, pitiful in knowing that she was the third. It was an honor to be the third. Hearing Fong Xin say this, Daifeng stood in the rain, all wet, and said hurriedly, "Your sister is simply a cosmic-level White Lotus. I'm going to argue with her." For the sake of Mr. Qin, Daifeng is not afraid of power and must make things clear with Hua Mi. At this time, Hua Migong had just made a big circle outside the rescue center, drove a flatbed truck, dragged a truck full of fruit, and returned to the outside of the RV. Da Fu and Xiaofu hurried forward to help unload the goods. Now everyone in the cubicle team is too busy to handle it. The factory director is responsible for taking care of Chao Feng, Tang Yu and Af Yu. Yi Rong wants to step on the raincoat and weave mats. Huami did this and that, and each time she brought back a lot of mineral water and a lot of medicine. Now, a large truckload of fruits has been brought back from somewhere. Only Dafu and Xiaofu were helping to take care of the supermarket outside the RV. Knowing that Huami had returned, Qin Ziren hurried out of the emergency area and headed towards the RV. But Dai Feng arrived outside the RV earlier than Qin Ziren. She concealed the resentment in her eyes and forced a smile on her face. Sister Ami. Huami paused what she was doing, looked at Dai Feng, and asked with cold eyes, "Why are you yelling so affectionately? Are you sick?" Dai Feng was standing far away holding an umbrella. She was covered in water, and it was the same whether she was holding an umbrella or not. She felt so uncomfortable that she felt like she couldn't breathe. Hearing Huami's impolite words, Dai Feng's face darkened. But this time she came for Mr. Qin and Feng Xian. So Dai Feng still tried to force a smile. "Sister Amy, I want to talk to you. Actually, Mr. Qin has already said something about me last time. I think I should come and apologize for my bad attitude towards you before, Sister Amy." Before she finished her words, Huami interrupted her. "Did Qin Ziren ask you to come this time? Or did you come here on your own?" "Of course it's me. I just think I still need to talk to you calmly. Sister Amy, since Mr. Qin has already had a relationship with your sister Xin, why can't you be more generous and help Mr. Qin and Xin?" Dai Feng was a little far away from Huami and didn't dare to get close because she was afraid that Huami would hit her. Moreover, she didn't dare to say anything bad anymore. Although the words that came out of a dog's mouth were ridiculous, she didn't dare to criticize Huami Dai Feng. "I used to think you were a straightforward person, but now I feel so strange. When did you become so stupid?" Huami unfolded the waterproof oilcloth in her hand, and her soft, semi-long black hair exploded with frizz, making a series of crackling sounds. "The weather is so dry that there is static electricity everywhere. Qin Ziren and Feng Xian had a relationship. Why did you come to persuade me to be magnanimous? Do you mean that I was pestering Qin Ziren? Which eye of yours saw me pestering him?" Seeing that Dai Feng wanted to speak, Huami said with disgust, "I advise you not to follow the lead of a witch like Feng Xian, or you will die without knowing how." The drizzle continued to fall day and night. Xiaofu got off the bus next door, with dry and flaky lips, and shouted loudly, "Sister Hua, come quickly, Brother Tang Yu is awake." Huami hurriedly left Dai Feng behind and ran towards the bus holding the tarpaulin. Seeing this, Dai Feng stomped her feet and wanted to follow. "Because I feel that Huami is not worthy of such a good Mr. Qin. Mr. Qin and Xin are a perfect match." She worked very hard for the happiness of Mr. Qin and Feng Xian. But Mr. Qin wants to get Huami back. Then Dai Feng would persuade Huami to withdraw voluntarily no matter what. Huami, who was walking in front, suddenly turned around and took out a piece of steel bar from somewhere in her hand. "Dai Feng, do you know that people like you are the ones who die the fastest in the end times? You think you are brave, but in fact you are just cannon fodder for others. You think your Mr. Qin is the best in the world, but in my eyes, he is good for nothing and worthless. Also, I'm reminding you once again, when disaster strikes, don't get too close to Feng Xian." After Huami finished speaking, she turned around and continued running towards the bus. But Dai Feng, with her body sticky and wet, looked at Huami's back in shock. She didn't believe what Huami said. How could Huami look down upon such a good man like Mr. Qin? And how could Huami advise Xian, such a kind and innocent girl, to stay away from her? Why did Huami say that? It must be a tactic of playing hard to get. No, Dai Feng insisted that Huami repeat what she had just said, and she had to record it. So when Dai Feng was about to approach the bus, she was blocked by 12-year-old Dafu. Dafu's face looked very bad. His skin was so dry and peeling. He stopped in front of Dai Feng and said angrily, "You stinky woman, you want to be beaten again, right? And you come here to make trouble for us. We have already avoided you so far away. Get out of here quickly." Seeing that Dai Feng refused to leave, Dafu picked up a bunch of straw and started to whip it in front of Dai Feng. "Get lost. Stop being annoying here. Get out of here." The straw mat in his hand was extremely tough and could be used as a rope. When tied into a bundle and used to hit people, it was as powerful as a horsewhip. Being treated like this by Daifang suddenly remembered how Huami beat someone in the emergency area that day. Her soul was startled, and she unconsciously moved away. By this time, Huami had already boarded the bus. On the bus, Chaofeng, who was covered with membranes, sat next to Tang Yu, who was also covered with membranes. Seeing Huami get in the car, Chaofeng and Tang Yu looked over at the same time. Sister Hua. Tang Yu struggled to sit up. His whole body was coated with a layer of hemostatic gel, and he also took painkillers, so he felt no pain and no blood spurted out of his body. It doesn't matter how you move. Tang Yu looked at Huami with gratitude. Sister Hua, thank you for saving my life. You have a strong will. It's good that you woke up. Take good care of your injuries. We can talk about the future later. Huami said sincerely. Maybe her medicine had some effect, but if it weren't for Tang Yu and Chao Feng's will to survive, the medicine would be useless no matter how good it was. At this time, Chao Feng heard the noise outside. He turned his head and looked with disgust. Is it that woman Daifang? What is she doing here again? I don't know. He said something inexplicable. He was probably afraid that I would pester Qin Ziren, so he tried to be a good guy and advised me to withdraw from the affair between Qin Ziren and Fang Xian. Huami shrugged and spoke very calmly. Fortunately, Daifang,